Chapter 1381. The immortal Qianbian Gate retracted all of its strength and made preparations for war. The Dongshengshan Gate naturally didn't remain idle during these days. After the immortal Qianbian Gate retreated, they gradually occupied the 5 prefectures controlled by the immortal Qianbian Gate. Right now, they were using the method of encirclement to gather the immortal armies of the 4 prefectures at the border of the Cloud Prefecture. They were also worried that the immortal Qianbian Gate would go all out, staking everything on a single throw. Hence, they didn't advance rashly but chose to take things slow and steady. They set up teleportation arrays at the 4 prefectures. Once there's a commotion in a certain location, they would be able to gather the immortal armies there immediately. Naturally, this was also a precautionary measure. In truth, their people had long infiltrated the Cloud Prefecture. If the immortal Qianbian Gate mobilized an army, they would instantly know. Right now, the Dongshengshan Gate's encirclement of the immortal Qianbian Gate had already formed a black cloud. Once the order was given, they would immediately advance towards the main city of the Cloud Prefecture. This time around, not only did they want a victory, they also wanted to let the people of the 13 prefectures understand who was the true master of this land. At the border of the Cloud Prefecture and Yu Prefecture, one of the 4 armies of the Dongshengshan Gate was stationed there. This army was extremely majestic and occupied an entire city. It was formed from the troops of the Dongshengshan Gate, and their strength was extremely shocking. The person leading this army was one of the 4 paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Back then when the emperor-ranked war erupted in the Evergreen Kingdom, the White Emperor appeared at the Dongshengshan Gate and killed a paragon with a wave of his hand. Hence, among the 4 paragons now, one of them was a replacement. As for the other 3 paragons, they were all extremely ancient experts that followed the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to conquer the 13 prefectures. The 4 paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, each of them led a supreme army. One could say that this time around, the Dongshengshan Gate used all its strength against the immortal Qianbian Gate, wanting to destroy the immortal Qianbian Gate in one fell swoop. Naturally, the immortal Qianbian Gate could choose to flee. But if that was the case, regardless of the Emperor Qianbian or the immortal Qianbian Gate, they wouldn't have the face to come to the 13 prefectures ever again. Back then, it was because the Emperor Qianbian fought to a draw with the Dongxing Heaven Emperor that the immortal Qianbian Gate obtained the 6 prefectures from the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Now if they abandoned their sect and fled, it would be a great humiliation. Outside the city at the border of the Cloud and Yu prefectures, over 10 silhouettes suddenly appeared. This city had already been cleared, and all the guards were from the Dongshengshan Gate. When the guards saw the masked silhouettes, they immediately berated. This is the territory of the Dongshengshan Gate. Unauthorized people are not allowed to enter. Those masked silhouettes acted as though they didn't hear it. They directly entered the city moving with an inconceivable speed. Boom! All of a sudden, the sound of drums rang out behind them. The immortal senses of the guards in the city swept out and very swiftly, more and more immortal foundation experts soared up into the air. Among them, there were a few immortal kings. They directly walked towards the masked silhouettes and coldly asked, "Who are you?" The masked silhouettes soared up into the air. One of them then spoke. The people of the immortal Qianbian Gate have issued a challenge to immortal kings at the same cultivation level. Do you accept the challenge? A commotion broke out in the army as more and more experts rushed over. Numerous immortal kings rushed over as well, exuding a majestic aura. If it was based on the number of people, it was sufficient to overwhelm the 10+ immortal kings here. A mere 10+ immortal kings actually dared to come here? They simply didn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. The Dongshengshan Gate naturally could choose not to accept the challenge. They could directly rush up and use numbers to suppress the immortal kings. However, immortal kings were naturally arrogant. Since the masked silhouettes issued a challenge, how could they not accept it? At this moment, an expert with a fearsome aura stepped out, causing the entire space to tremble. This person was none other than one of the 4 paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Paragon Golden Cauldron. This Paragon Golden Cauldron was one of the late replacements for the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. His strength was incomparably tyrannical and his cultivation base had already reached the transformation boundary. very close to the immortal Emperor realm. He was definitely a supremely terrifying existence. People of the immortal Qianbian Gate, do you all not dare to show yourselves? Are you all hiding your faces? Paragon Golden Cauldron's voice boomed out like a great bell, containing the sharpness of the great Tao within his words. There's no need for nonsense. Today we are here to issue a challenge to immortal kings. Do you accept the challenge? That masked silhouette spoke. How do we fight? Paragon Golden Cauldron asked. At the same cultivation level. As the sound of his voice faded, a figure walked out. His aura gushed forth as destructive devil might gushed forth, as well as traces of sharp sword chi. This person was none other than Qin Wentian. He wore a fiendish devil mask on his face, resembling a devil cultivator. Devil cultivator? Paragon Golden Cauldron frowned. Devil cultivators were mostly gathered on the myriad devil islands. Although there were also devil cultivators in the immortal realms, there weren't many of them. Paragon Golden Cauldron, you seem to be a little too curious. You should have sensed his cultivation base. He's an initial stage immortal king. If you accept the challenge, send out someone at the same cultivation level as you. That masked silhouette continued. Paragon Golden Cauldron muttered to himself. After that, he turned his head and stared at everyone. The people of the immortal Qianbian Gate were so audacious, coming here to issue a challenge. Most probably, they must have come prepared. In that case, the combat prowess of this person would surely be extremely powerful. In a war between two armies, immortal kings would definitely be the cornerstone of the army. Unless immortal emperors directly fought against each other, the crux of victory would be determined by the immortal kings. No losses were allowed. Guyu, are you willing to accept the challenge? Paragon Golden Cauldron asked. Disciple is willing. From within the Dongshengshan Gate, a young immortal king walked out. He was the beloved disciple of Paragon Golden Cauldron, and had extremely powerful combat prowess. Paragon Golden Cauldron was very confident in him. This was why he chose him to accept the challenge. Since this is the case, let's both sides retreat and empty the battlefield. The masked silhouette spoke. Paragon Golden Cauldron nodded as both sides retreated, emptying the battlefield. At this location, only Qin Wentian and Guyu remained. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. The Dongshengshan Gate has always been a power he wanted to destroy. The grudge between him and the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor had a very long history. Now that there's a chance to kill the experts of the Dongshengshan Gate, he naturally wouldn't miss it. He wouldn't show any mercy at all. Guyu is the beloved disciple of Paragon Golden Cauldron, and is proficient in strength similar to Paragon Golden Cauldron. His attacks are tyrannical and his defense is extremely strong. A strand of immortal sense transmitted into Qin Wentian's ears. He nodded silently in his heart as a fearsome destructive devil might congregated. Fearsome law energy circulated around him as an incomparably sharp devil saber of destruction appeared in his hand. The saber art that the undying old freak imparted to him could be used to conceal the techniques he was proficient in the past. After that, he infused the god's hand into his saber attacks, allowing him to unleash tyrannical attacks while not being seen through. A gigantic cauldron floated around Guyu. In fact, golden law light flashed, instantly enveloping the space where Qin Wentian was at. His law domain was none other than the Golden Cauldron law domain. The disciples that Paragon Golden Cauldron accepted all cultivated the same law attribute as him. Guyu was none other than the inheritor of Paragon Golden Cauldron. Rumble. An incomparably heavy suppressive might gushed forth, wanting to crush Qin Wentian into oblivion. Qin Wentian unleashed his destructive devil law energy as strands of saber intent infused with sword attribute energy manifested, transforming into numerous devil sabers of destruction that slashed at the gigantic cauldron shadow. Guyu pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. In an instant, a gigantic golden cauldron appeared in the air, blotting out the sun as it revolved frenziedly, directly aiming for Qin Wentian, exuding an incomparably fearsome aura. A law domain attack? The light flowing around Qin Wentian flowed into the devil saber in his hand. After that, he slashed out with his saber, executing the first stance of the devil saber. The gigantic cauldron was split apart from the center, But the devil might grew stronger and stronger. The law energy in Qin Wentian's body frenziedly flowed into the devil saber, as well as the law energy in the surroundings. Guyu frowned. The might of the devil saber seemed to be growing stronger. Slash. Qin Wentian spat out a single word as he slashed out a second time. This time, the saber directly traversed through space. The devil saber slashed out as destructive arcs appeared in the air. Guyu's surroundings were filled with golden light as numerous gigantic cauldrons enveloped him, seemingly indestructible. Bang! A thunderous sound rang out as the saber shattered. Guyu's defenses also crumbled apart. His eyes flashed with coldness. Although this saber strike was powerful, it only managed to break through his defenses. But at this moment, Qin Wentian stabbed out with a finger as another illusory saber manifested, infusing even more terrifying law energy into it. Careful! Paragon Golden Cauldron reminded. Guyu's expression turned heavy as boundless law energy gathered around him. His body turned golden as he folded seals with his hands, manifesting a myriad of cauldrons that shot towards the devil saber. Around the devil saber, a myriad of saber shadows appeared, all of them cleaving down at the same time. The sky changed color as devil might churned wildly, clashing against the boundless golden light, causing the space to tremble and the cauldrons to shatter. The saber might continued on its way towards Guyu, but Guyu was already prepared. He punched out as a golden divine dragon manifested in the air. Qin Wentian's expression didn't change at all. He pointed his finger in the air once more as a saber manifested. This was the fourth saber strike, but it wasn't as large as the previous one. However, the devil might within it was even stronger than before. Die! Qin Wentian pointed his finger in the air as the devil saber transformed into a black stream of light, slashing towards Guyu once more. Guyu's expression grew heavy as he stared at the devil saber slashing down. This saber became smaller, but it seemed to be even faster. Boom! A bolt of black lightning directly shot over. At this instant, Guyu only felt his soul shuddering as his body trembled. In his eyes, the devil saber seemed to have split apart as numerous beams of saber light shot out. He couldn't see where it was aiming at. Guyu! Paragon Golden Cauldron roared, his voice akin to a thunderbolt from the clear skies. Guyu's heart trembled violently as he reacted. He only saw the devil saber expanding in size in his eyes, but it was already too late. Poochie! As the saber slashed down, a black line appeared on Guyu's forehead, extending downwards. In the next instant, a thunderous boom rang out as Guyu's body directly exploded, destroyed by the tyrannical devil might of the saber. Paragon Golden Cauldron's palm descended, but he was still a step too late. His movements stiffened as his countenance turned ashen. What a bizarre devil saber innate technique. The true killing move of this saber art was in the fourth stance. This saber art was specially made for Qin Wentian by that old freak, the soul-severing devil saber. Chapter 1382. Immortal King Guyu of the Immortal Qianbian Gate died in battle. Paragon Golden Cauldron's countenance turned ashen. A sharp aura gushed forth from him, causing the vast space to tremble violently. Guyu was a disciple he had high hopes for. Guyu had obtained his true inheritance, his cultivation base was extremely high and his talent was exceedingly high. There was a chance for Guyu to reach his level. However, Guyu actually died in the midst of a battle. Under the fourth saber strike, Guyu didn't even have a chance to flee. From this, one could see that this saber strike wasn't something Guyu could block. Do you want to continue or not? He will still be the one to fight. You guys can choose any initial stage Immortal King to fight. Even before Paragon Golden Cauldron was enraged, the Kirin-masked Immortal King spoke. Paragon Golden Cauldron's expression turned extremely unsightly to behold. Guyu didn't even have a chance to flee from this devil-masked Immortal King. From this, one could see how strong this opponent was. If it was someone else, they would definitely not be able to win against him. Since they couldn't win, Paragon Golden Cauldron wouldn't be so foolish as to send someone else to fight. Boom! Paragon Golden Cauldron suddenly acted. In an instant, at the location where Qin Wentian was at, a gigantic golden palm imprint appeared in the air, directly grabbing towards Qin Wentian. This golden palm imprint flowed with terrifying law energy, capable of destroying everything. It grabbed towards Qin Wentian with inconceivable speed. Almost at the same time, a fist light shot out from behind Qin Wentian. This fist light contained a roar of rage, shaking the heavens and earth as it directly slammed into the center of the gigantic palm imprint. A muffled boom rang out, followed by the sound of shattering. Cracks appeared on the surface of the gigantic palm imprint before it crumbled into nothingness. A paragon of the Dongshengshan Gate. A mocking smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. After that, he turned and departed in an incomparably carefree manner. The people of the immortal Qianbian Gate were all stunned. That ape-masked immortal king actually broke apart Paragon Golden Cauldron's attack with a single punch. Although it was just a casual strike, one could still see how strong this opponent was. The Dongshengshan Gate's army is here. There are so many immortal kings here, but there's actually no one who dares to fight. How disappointing. Since this is the case, we will bid our farewell. That Kirin-masked immortal king spoke. After that, the group of them turned and departed. You think you can leave so easily just because you came? Paragon Golden Cauldron coldly laughed. This was a war and not a one-on-one challenge. As long as it wasn't an immortal emperor against an immortal king, or an immortal king against an immortal foundation expert, it wouldn't be considered a violation of the rules of the immortal war. The other party didn't bother to reply and directly departed. It was as though this place where the troops of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect were stationed was an uninhabited place. Attack! Paragon Golden Cauldron coldly roared. A moment later, the entire space was enveloped by his might as rumbling sounds rang out. The bodies of Paragon Golden Cauldron and the other peak stage immortal kings grew incomparably gigantic as they launched attacks towards the fleeing figures. Several peak stage immortal kings unleashed their attacks at the same time, causing this entire space to crumble. However, at this moment, several masked immortal kings turned and blasted out their attacks. A gigantic palm imprint blocked the sky as a sword pierced through the air, manifesting a gigantic phantom of a gigantic beast, wanting to crush everything. Rumble! A thunderous rumbling sound rang out in the air, causing the Immortal Foundation soldiers below to directly lie flat on their stomachs. They only felt their eardrums about to rupture, and there were some weaker ones who even bled from the 7 apertures of their heads. Paragon Golden Cauldron frowned. He glanced at the chaos in the city as his expression grew unsightly. They were the ones who took the initiative to attack. The other party didn't take the initiative to kill their Immortal Foundation experts. In addition, there were many peak stage immortal kings among this group of people. Those masked immortal kings coldly laughed. After that, they left one after another. Some immortal kings chased after them, but Paragon Golden Cauldron spoke. There's no need to chase anymore. As the sound of his voice faded, many people halted as their expressions turned unsightly. Were they going to allow these people to leave just like that? After killing the beloved disciple of a paragon, there were even Immortal Foundation experts who were killed by the aftershocks, yet these people actually left so casually. Paragon. Someone stared at Paragon Golden Cauldron, his eyes filled with reluctance. They gathered many peak stage immortal kings. It's useless to chase after them. Paragon Golden Cauldron coldly spoke. Gathering all their forces together to harass them? The expressions of everyone froze. Many peak stage immortal kings? If this was the case, it would be extremely difficult to chase after them. It was almost impossible. Their Eastern Sage Immortal sect was split into 4 different armies, and their strength was more or less equal. Although the Eastern Sage Immortal sect had nurtured many immortal kings, the number of peak stage immortal kings they had wasn't too many. These were all characters that were close to the immortal emperor realm. How hateful. Paragon, when are we going to advance into the battlefield and surround the Cloud Prefecture city? An immortal king asked. Soon, the Dongshengshan Gate's forces are all gathered here. Just a few more people and we can attack. As long as the Cloud Prefecture city is surrounded, it wouldn't be so easy for the people of the immortal Qianbian Gate to retreat. Paragon Golden Cauldron's expression was ice-cold, exuding a powerful killing intent. The immortal Qianbian Gate wasn't far away from its doomsday. Very soon, the immortal Qianbian Gate, who seized the territory of the Dongshengshan Gate, would face a calamity. In that case, Let's just wait and hope that this day would come sooner. The immortal kings all had cold gleams in their eyes. This time around, the immortal Qianbian Gate actually directly challenged them, killing one of their immortal kings and retreating safely. This was simply disregarding them. This was a humiliation. Let's wait and see. Paragon Golden Cauldron coldly spoke. After Qin Wentian and his group left, they didn't directly return to the Cloud Prefecture city. Instead, they headed towards the other army camp of the Dongshengshan Gate. This army camp was under the control of an immortal emperor, one of the 4 paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Paragon Skyrock. Right now, Paragon Skyrock was already an immortal emperor expert. Out of the 4 paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, 3 of them were characters who fought alongside the Dongxing Heaven Emperor countless years ago. They were like brothers and had a very close relationship. Even when it came to matters of the immortal sect, they rarely interfered and would often go out to temper themselves. Right now, there were already 2 immortal emperors among them. Other than Paragon Skyrock, there was another immortal emperor. This immortal emperor was the one the White Emperor met back then at the Dongshengshan Gate. When Qin Wentian arrived, everyone introduced the situation of the 4 paragons to him. Speaking of which, he had some connection with Paragon Skyrock. Back then during the 100-year grand banquet of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect, he had obtained a rune bone of a Skyrock, and that rune bone belonged to the Mount of Paragon Skyrock. He didn't expect that one of the 4 paragons, Paragon Skyrock, was actually an immortal emperor expert. This time around, when facing the immortal emperor army, the 4 of them were even more flamboyant. They descended from the air and crushed the city gates. Every step they took caused the buildings to crumble and the ground to crumble, exuding a majestic aura. And on the other side, an army of immortal kings had arrived, waiting in formation. With an immortal emperor like Paragon Skyrock here, these people naturally knew of their arrival. The immortal Qianbian Gate pays our respects to Paragon Skyrock. Everyone spoke in a clear voice, as though they didn't care about Paragon Skyrock. Although this army was led by an immortal emperor, immortal emperors couldn't interfere and deal with them. If not, they would all die together. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor and the other immortal emperors would kill the people of the immortal Qianbian Gate, while the Emperor Qianbian and by Wuxia would kill the people of the other side. Usually, no one would dare to defy the rules of the immortal war. Busy. A raging wind gusted by as a sky rock soared through the air. On the back of the rock, a black-robed figure resembling a supreme king stood there proudly. His eyes were filled with arrogance as cold as ice. We pay our respects to Paragon Skyrock. Although the people of the immortal Qianbian Gate came here in a high-profile manner, they were still very polite. Paragon Skyrock didn't say anything, he merely stared at them coldly. Today, I came here because I wish to challenge the immortal kings of the Dongshengshan Gate. I wonder if Senior is willing to accept my challenge? The Kirin masked man smiled. His attitude was the same as that of Paragon Golden Cauldron. If you want to fight, I will accompany you. Paragon Skyrock's voice was filled with arrogance. He was one of the 4 ancient paragons, and was also an immortal emperor expert. He naturally had to protect the pride of the Dongshengshan Gate. Since the immortal Qianbian Gate came here to challenge him, how could he not accept it? Qin Wentian walked out again and released his aura. Junior is an initial stage immortal king. Please guide me. Who is willing to fight? Paragon Skyrock spoke. At this moment, an initial stage late stage immortal king stepped out. This person radiated coldness, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plunge. He stared at Qin Wentian with a gaze so cold that it felt as though it could freeze people. I'm willing to fight. That person spoke. Please. Qin Wentian laughed. Boundless devil might gushed forth as a devil saber appeared in his hand. Boundless destructive law energy converged on him. Freeze. Only to see that at this moment, the voice of the other party rang out. Crackling sounds rang out unceasingly as the entire space around them froze over. Even Qin Wentian himself was frozen within the ice, transforming into an ice sculpture. Boom. The destructive energy from Qin Wentian frenziedly erupted forth, shattering the ice around him. However, the ice around him actually transformed into a tempest as terrifying ice spears shot out, shooting towards Qin Wentian with lightning speed. Qin Wentian's body transformed into a series of afterimages, moving with extreme speed. His saber slashed out unceasingly, destroying the ice spears. Wherever his saber slashed out, the ice would crumble as he continued to rush out. And just at the instant he rushed out of the ice statue, the other party pointed a finger in the direction he flew out from. Numerous waves of ripples gushed forth, resembling icy water. When the ripples came into contact with Qin Wentian's devil saber, the saber actually began to corrode away bit by bit. After that, the entire ice statue turned into corrosive water that gushed towards Qin Wentian. The law energy of the other party was able to corrode other law energies. Boom! Qin Wentian's body glowed with an incomparably terrifying divine light, as though it was condensed from all sorts of law energy. He lifted his finger and pointed it at the other party. Destructive devil might tore through everything, directly clashing head-on with the other party. His arm penetrated through the corrosive water, and his body of laws was also being corroded bit by bit. However, this finger of his seemed to be filled with the determination to kill, not hesitating to injure both sides. The other party frowned, evidently unwilling to go all out. He retreated, but at such a close distance Qin Wentian's attack speed was extremely fast. With an explosive sound, the other party's body of laws shattered. The destructive energy directly ravaged the other party's body, causing him to scream in pain. Qin Wentian himself retreated. His body seemed to be corroded as well as a look of shock appeared on his face. This fellow is even more sinister. The people from the immortal Qianbian Gate stared at Qin Wentian and snickered. Was he purposely showing weakness? Chapter 1383. Paragon Sky Rock frowned. He seemed to have seen through something. At this moment, Qin Wentian continued. Is the strength of the Dongshengshan Gate only at this level? They can't even withstand a single strike, too weak. Are there any stronger immortal kings for me to kill? They had some understanding of Qin Wentian's combat prowess. An attack of such a level shouldn't be able to injure him. Also, this attack of his definitely had the ability to kill the immortal king of the Dongshengshan Gate. However, Qin Wentian didn't do so and intentionally acted weak, crippling his opponent while pretending to be heavily injured. In addition, there was also a terrifying gravitational force pressing down on this space. Qin Wentian replied. He who was wearing a mask took a step forward and spoke. Continue to seek guidance. You can change your opponent now. Boom! Qin Wentian's body grew incomparably gigantic, transforming into a giant. A dazzling light circulated around him as a terrifying destructive devil domain manifested. Numerous palm imprints appeared as he lifted his palms and blasted out towards the incoming attack, causing the entire space to rumble. The people of the immortal Qianbian Gate started. Seems like Paragon Skyrock was also incomparably confident. Is Wang Yu going to fight? The hearts of everyone trembled. If this was the case, there wouldn't be any problems. Qin Wentian soared up into the air. Wang Yu also followed after him. Paragon Skyrock coldly spoke. Since we have agreed on a life-and-death battle, don't think about interfering. All of you just stay here. Who wants to fight? Paragon Skyrock coldly spoke. A moment later, another immortal king stepped out. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Master? Seeing the look in the eyes of the people from Dongshengshan Gate, Qin Wentian took another look at Wang Yu, who was walking over. It seemed that Dongshengshan Gate was very confident in this person. Presumably, this person's combat ability was amazing. Someone who held a high position in Dongshengshan Gate, and was not a disciple of Supreme Tian Peng. It must have something to do with Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Since that was the case, there was no way Qin Wentian would let the other party live. That was why he made the request to kill the other party. Roar! Wang Yu let out a thunderous roar. The countless meteors around his gigantic body smashed towards the sky. However, loud banging sounds rang out continuously as everything was shattered. In an instant, the gigantic palm that could shatter everything came crashing down, bringing with it an unparalleled might. Feeling the pressure, Qin Wentian secretly praised. He was indeed worthy of being the personal disciple of Dongxing Heaven Emperor. His previous opponents could not be compared to him. Boom! That immortal King Law domain erupted forth, instantly engulfing the entire space. In the vast battlefield, boundless killing intent gushed forth as sword qi ravaged the area. That person stepped out, directly rushing towards Qin Wentian. He was proficient in the sword and was proficient in both close combat and long-range combat. This was especially so for close combat. The threat he posed was extremely great, capable of killing with a single strike. Paragon Skyrock initially wanted to end this challenge. But when he saw Wang Yu stepping out, he didn't say anything. Below, the eyes of many immortal kings turned heavy. Paragon Skyrock furrowed his brows. The Drift Cloud Immortal King's Drift Cloud Swordsmanship is as smooth as flowing water, impenetrable by wind and rain. It's able to compress the might of an immortal king into a small space, truly powerful. The eyes of many of the immortal kings from Dongshengshan Gate gleamed with sharpness. They hoped that the Drift Cloud Immortal King would be able to kill Qin Wentian here, displaying the prestige of their Dongshengshan Gate. This time around, the Drift Cloud Immortal King will definitely be able to kill this person. Someone spoke. This fellow's attacks were extremely bizarre. It wasn't easy to deal with him. The eyes of the immortal kings from Dongshengshan Gate froze. How could this be? They clearly had the upper hand. Yet the tables were suddenly turned and he was killed in a single strike. At the end, that masked fellow's attacks were extremely powerful, and the Devil Saber in the second strike was extremely bizarre. Why didn't the Drift Cloud Immortal King evade it? We will definitely win this battle. The eyes of the immortal kings turned cold as they stared at Qin Wentian. This man crippled one of their immortal kings and killed another. They must definitely not allow him to leave here alive. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed. This fellow was truly... Boom! A fearsome might gushed forth as astral light flashed, causing the heavens and earth to change color. This time around, because they were fighting in the air, Wang Yu didn't hold back and unleashed his might. In an instant, an area of a radius of 100 miles was filled with terrifying might. This entire area transformed into his domain world. In the air, numerous flaming meteors could be seen floating in the air. These meteors were like constellations, blazing with terrifying flames, as though they were formed from the explosion of a constellation. Wang Yu, the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Wang Yu coldly spoke, exuding a sense of disdain. Qin Wentian's body trembled slightly, causing Wang Yu to coldly smile. Are you afraid? What's the use of that? Let me. A cold voice rang out. The gazes of everyone turned over, only to see a young immortal king walking out. This immortal king was clad in white and exuded an extraordinary aura. His gaze was terrifying. The two of them fought more and more ferocious as the might of their attacks surged up into the sky. Qin Wentian was faintly being suppressed, unable to unleash the tyrannical might of his saber to its fullest. The masked immortal kings from the immortal Qianbian Gate were all suppressing their laughter. Too sinister, this fellow suddenly acted in such a high-profile manner, wanting to infuriate the Dongshengshan Gate and force them to fight. Qin Wentian stepped out, using his devil saber to defend against the sword techniques of his opponent. The two of them fought intensely, seemingly equally matched. Each of their attacks was extremely dangerous, suppressing the might of immortal kings into a small space. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying this was. Wang Yu, Paragon Skyrock stepped out, but at the same time, a white-robed figure with a Kirin mask appeared before him. A terrifying might gushed forth, blocking his path of retreat. Die die die. The Drift Cloud Immortal King roared. His killing intent towered up into the sky as 3 beams of sword might shot out, wanting to annihilate everything. However, Qin Wentian lifted his hand and pointed out with a finger. Rumbling bolts of lightning descended, manifesting a blood-red devil might that shattered the sword qi. At the same time, the devil saber appeared once more, transforming into a black-colored bolt of lightning. At this instant, the soul of the Drift Cloud Immortal King trembled. After that, the black-colored bolt of lightning flashed past, causing the entire space to freeze as the tempest dissipated. Qin Wentian, who suddenly became arrogant, instantly incited the rage of the immortal kings from the Dongshengshan Gate. He merely won by a hair's breadth. Yet he dared to be so arrogant? What did he mean by he couldn't even withstand a single strike? Too weak? Simply impudent. Wang Yu and Qin Wentian stopped in the air. Their cold and arrogant gazes stared at Qin Wentian. Wang Yu spoke. Back then, the Emperor Qianbian used dishonorable methods to forcefully seize the 6 prefectures. Ultimately, he has to pay the price for his actions. I've followed my master for many years, but I've yet to make any contributions. Today, I will use your life to repay the kindness my master has shown me. Sure. Wang Yu couldn't have asked for more. He didn't expect that the other party would take the initiative to make such a request. The strength of this Wang Yu was truly very powerful. Rumble, numerous heavy and gigantic meteors directly descended from the air, smashing towards Qin Wentian. The speed of the meteors was as fast as shooting stars, accompanied by thunderous rumbling sounds as blazing flames radiated from them. In addition to the incomparably heavy gravity, it was basically impossible for the people in this domain to evade. They could only endure it head-on. What was even more terrifying was that countless devil palm imprints of destruction converged in the domain, blotting out the sun. A boundless palm of darkness manifested in the air, blocking out the sky and the earth. Can you continue? The immortal king of the immortal Qianbian Gate intentionally asked. Although Paragon Skyrock was an immortal emperor character, Qin Wentian himself had chosen to endure it. Hence, he had no way to know how powerful Qin Wentian was exactly. However, his expression was extremely unsightly to behold. He was still very confident in Wang Yu's strength. Wang Yu was the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. His strength far surpassed the Drift Cloud Immortal King. Kill. At this moment, Qin Wentian coldly spoke. That gigantic palm imprint slammed down from the air as boundless runes revolved around it, radiating destructive light that destroyed everything. Disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? Qin Wentian asked. Who the hell do you think you are? You want to help me? Qin Wentian didn't change at all. He coldly spoke. If you have the guts, let's fight to the death. No one is allowed to flee. Only when one side dies would the battle end. How about it? Mchem? Wang Yu inclined his head as his expression changed. Since you agree, please go ahead. Qin Wentian soared up into the air. He guessed that this man must be an extremely important character. When he walked out, the expressions of the immortal kings all changed. It was like they were certain that this man would be able to kill him. Also, this initial stage immortal king had a look of arrogance in his eyes. When the people in the surroundings looked at him, there was also some respect in their eyes. From this, one could see that this man had a very high status. Qin Wentian naturally wasn't afraid. He was agitated. He didn't expect that he would encounter a personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. His luck was simply too good. Since this was the case, there was no need for him to be polite anymore. However, although the immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate were enraged, they still maintained their rationality. The Drift Cloud Immortal King could already be considered an extremely powerful immortal king. Among initial stage immortal kings, his combat prowess could be considered extremely high. But even so, he still died in battle. For those weaker than the Drift Cloud Immortal King, they naturally wouldn't rush out to fight against Qin Wentian. Bang! Another shocking collision rang out. Saber and sword collided, both crumbling apart. The Drift Cloud Immortal King once again gathered his supreme sword might. Qin Wentian's devil might churned intensely as he roared unceasingly. A towering devil might circulated around Qin Wentian, causing the heavens and earth to rumble. The destructive devil might and demonic law energy fused together. Qin Wentian lifted his palm and blasted out a palm strike. An incomparably thunderous roar shook the heavens and earth as a gigantic devil dragon of darkness actually manifested, rushing towards the incoming meteor. Since you are courting death, I shall grant you your wish. Wang Yu stared at Qin Wentian. The immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate started as well. Many of them coldly laughed, but they didn't say anything. They also didn't expose Wang Yu's identity. Since this fellow is seeking death, they might as well not affect him. Senior, just say it. The immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate nodded. They didn't move. They merely inclined their heads and stared at the sky. Bang, bang, bang. A heaven-shaking collision occurred in the air as shattered rocks flew in all directions. Wang Yu let out a thunderous roar as his body expanded to an incomparably gigantic size. Flames and meteors revolved around him as the gravity around him caused the entire space to collapse. He punched out with his fist, aiming for Qin Wentian, wanting to destroy the heavens and earth. He wanted to kill Qin Wentian with his strongest attack. Chapter 1384. Paragon Sky Rock stared at the Kirin-masked white-robed figure. His emperor might gushed forth as he coldly spoke, "By Wuya." The person before him was radiating emperor might. There were only two immortal emperors in the immortal Qianbian Gate. One was the Emperor Qianbian, and the other was the former white-robed immortal king, Bai Wuya. Hence, when he sensed the emperor might, he instantly guessed that this person was none other than Bai Wuya. The Emperor Qianbian's opponent was the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. He wouldn't come here. Paragon Skyrock, don't forget the rules. The Kirin mask broke apart, revealing Bai Wuya's silhouette. He was still as young as ever, like a white-robed scholar. You actually came here to challenge us while hiding among the immortal kings? Paragon Skyrock coldly spoke. I didn't act, that means I didn't break the rules. Aren't you leading an army as well? What's the difference between us? Bai Wuya calmly spoke. The expressions of the immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate all turned ugly. They didn't expect Bai Wuya to personally come here. No wonder these people were so daring to come here to challenge them. The other immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate wanted to head to the air, but they only heard Bai Wuya coldly speaking. Both sides agreed to a life-and-death battle. No one is to interfere. Whoever breaks the rules will be killed. As the sound of his voice rang out, the immortal kings all halted their steps as their expressions turned ashen. Before this, both sides did indeed have an agreement to not interfere. Bai Wuya's words were right. Before this, everyone felt that Wang Yu would win for sure. It was just that they didn't expect Wang Yu to be so powerful. Inclining their heads and staring at the sky, thunderous rumbling sounds could be heard as an emperor might gushed forth. This was the immortal sense of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor appearing. Your Majesty. Everyone turned to Dongxing Heaven Emperor only to see his immortal sense staring at the masked Qin Wentian as he coldly spoke. Impudent. Dongxing Heaven Emperor, you are not to interfere in a battle between immortal kings. Bai Wuya stared at Dongxing Heaven Emperor as he spoke. Bai Wuya, Wang Yu is my disciple. Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. Both sides are fighting an immortal war. Since the participants have already come to the battlefield, why is there a need to ask about status? In addition, he has already agreed to a life-and-death battle with my people. Paragon Skyrock has already agreed, and the experts of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect have all nodded their heads as witnesses. If Senior Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor breaks the rules and interferes, don't blame Bai Wuya for offending you. Wang Yu can be spared this time and I Qin. Dongxing Heaven Emperor, I Qin King Shao. King I King. Pardon me. Bai Wuya coldly spoke. His eyes abruptly gleamed with starlight as a killing intent seeped into Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense. Bai Wuya, how dare you? Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense coldly roared. Senior Eastern Sage should understand the rules of the battlefield. Bai Wuya coldly snorted, incomparably emotionless. The immortal sense of Dongxing Heaven Emperor was directly erased. The experts of the Dongxing Gate all stared coldly at Bai Wuya. This fellow was simply too impudent. He actually dared to act against the immortal sense of Dongxing Heaven Emperor. The battle shall continue. Bai Wuya calmly spoke. Although he was an initial stage immortal emperor, he had already broken through to the immortal emperor realm. How could the immortal sense of Dongxing Heaven Emperor be able to compare to him? Qin Wentian's expression was cold. Although Bai Wuya said that the battle shall continue, there was no longer a need to fight anymore. Earlier, he had already heavily injured Wang Yu, causing Wang Yu to lose his combat prowess. If not, Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense would have already saved Wang Yu's life. If not, Wang Yu would have already died. How could this battle still be considered a battle? At this moment, how could Wang Yu still be arrogant? When he saw Qin Wentian walking over, his eyes were filled with despair. Spare me. Wang Yu begged. Puchi. A devil saber slashed out, directly killing Wang Yu, showing no mercy. Qin Wentian's expression was incomparably cold. This time around, another personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was killed by him. Most probably, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor would feel some heartache. This personal disciple was someone at the peak stage of the Immortal King realm, and had extremely powerful combat prowess. It was just that the Dongxing Heaven Emperor still didn't know that the person who killed his personal disciple was none other than him, Qin Wentian. Kill him. Paragon Sky Rock commanded. His eyes were extremely cold. Since the battle between Qin Wentian and Wang Yu had ended, they could surround and kill Qin Wentian. However, the immortal kings of the Immortal Qianbian Gate were already prepared. After the battle ended, they instantly appeared beside Qin Wentian. Qi Yu, who was wearing a demon ape mask, slammed his palms downwards as a gigantic divine ape appeared, letting out a thunderous roar. A palm imprint appeared in the shadow, shaking the heavens and earth, capable of destroying everything. Those below the peak stage of the Immortal King realm instantly halted their steps and retreated. This attack was too violent, they couldn't withstand it. Only peak stage Immortal Kings would be able to defend against it. Go. Bai Wuya calmly spoke. Several powerful peak stage Immortal Kings unleashed their attacks at the same time. After that, they soared up into the air, moving with the speed of lightning. Stop them! Paragon Sky Rock roared in rage. Terrifying law domains enveloped the area. There was an extremely tyrannical gravity law domain, as well as a fearsome devouring law domain. However, one of the immortal kings of the Immortal Qianbian Gate unleashed a miraculous law domain, enveloping everyone from the Immortal Qianbian Gate. In an instant, all laws and domains were useless against him. At the same time, there were also experts proficient in the law of wind who brought the immortal kings away with great speed. Law immunity. Paragon Sky Rock had an unsightly expression on his face. The speed of peak stage immortal kings was incomparably fast, let alone when there were so many of them. Only peak stage immortal kings could barely catch up to them. Bai Wuya laughed. Paragon Sky Rock, farewell. As he spoke, he soared up into the air as his white robes vanished. Several peak stage immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate chased for a moment before they stopped. They stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette as they let out roars of unwillingness. Immortal Qianbian Gate. They clenched their fists as their killing intent surged, causing this entire space to tremble. Come back. Paragon Sky Rock's voice drifted over. Inform the other three armies to pay attention to this challenger. Don't fall for his tricks again. At this moment, how could they still not understand that Qin Wentian intentionally hid his strength for the first battle? It was the same for the second battle, but he suddenly grew arrogant. Hence, there was the third battle and Wang Yu's death. This not only caused the Dongxing Gate to suffer heavy losses, it also caused them to lose a lot of face. In this immortal war, they had the absolute initiative and had already surrounded the Cloud Prefecture. Yet they actually lost so much face here. His Majesty's personal disciple was killed. How would they explain this to him? Paragon Sky Rock's expression turned heavy. He stared at Wang Yu's corpse as he coldly asked, "Who knows who killed Wang Yu earlier?" Wang Yu was the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, but he was killed in public. In the future, they had to kill that person to avenge Wang Yu and give His Majesty an explanation. Before this, I've never heard of anyone from the Immortal Qianbian Gate who is proficient in devil energy. Only during the adjudication battle did Qin Wentian and his group of people enter the myriad devil islands. Could it be Qin Wentian or one of those people? An immortal king who had some understanding of the adjudication battle asked. Impossible. How many years has it been since the adjudication battle ended? How many years has Qin Wentian cultivated for? Although he has already stepped into the 9th level of Immortal Foundation before the adjudication battle ended, how can it be so easy to break through to the Immortal King realm? In addition, even if he really stepped into the Immortal King realm, it's impossible for him to have such combat prowess. Clearly, he is at the late phase of the initial stage of the Immortal King realm. It's impossible for Qin Wentian to do so. It's even more impossible for that group of people to do so. You are right. I was the one making wild guesses. That immortal king earlier nodded. This was indeed too exaggerated. It was basically impossible for such a thing to happen. This was simply demonizing Qin Wentian. How could he be so monstrous? Is there no one who knows who he is? An immortal king who is proficient in the Devil Dao, Destruction attribute, Devil Saber and Palm imprints. Think about it, if he is someone from the 13 prefectures, it shouldn't be too difficult to guess his identity, right? Paragon Skyrock coldly spoke. Everyone frowned. They truly couldn't think of such an immortal king from the 13 prefectures. Paragon, unless this person has never come out before, he must be the reinforcements of the immortal Qianbian Gate. If not, there's no way we wouldn't know about him. That's right, they are wearing special masks to conceal their identities. I also feel that they might be reinforcements from other powers. We are very clear about the strength of the immortal Qianbian Gate. How long has their history been? How many powerful immortal kings can they have? They must have asked for reinforcements from the peak powers of the Chongqing the Great Alliance back then. Another immortal king spoke. Paragon Skyrock's eyes gleamed with sharpness. The possibility of this was very high. After all, this time around. No matter who he is, remember, if you encounter him on the battlefield, you have to take his life to give his majesty an explanation. Paragon Skyrock coldly spoke. Yes, definitely. All the immortal kings nodded. And at this moment, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was currently raging in his Emperor Palace. Bai Wuya actually dared to destroy his immortal sense, and wanted to kill his disciple? Simply brazen and brazen to the extreme. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's killing intent towards Bai Wuya grew even more intense. After that, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor gave the order to advance to the Cloud Prefecture and surround the immortal Qianbian Gate. As for the other side, Bai Wuya and his group didn't continue to challenge the other two armies. They have already killed a personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. How could they not be wary? The group of them directly returned to the immortal Qianbian Gate. After that, they went to Bai Wuya's residence. Everyone was filled with excitement. Our harvest this time around isn't bad. We killed a personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. This should be sufficient to cause the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to feel heartache. The immortal kings removed their masks. Qin Wentian told the immortal kings of the Battle Saint tribe to return. After all, Bai Wuya's residence belonged to the people of the Heavenly Talisman realm, and it wasn't suitable for others to know about it. Although the Battle Saint tribe was one of them, the Heavenly Talisman realm had its own rules. Junior Brother Qin is truly impressive and crafty. Why are all of you so excited? What interesting thing happened exactly? The immortal kings who didn't go to the immortal Qianbian Gate came up and laughed. When everyone recounted what happened, everyone started laughing as their gazes shone with a bright light when they stared at Qin Wentian. This junior brother of theirs was truly impressive, causing the Dongxing Gate to suffer a loss in silence. The battle results this time around can be considered not bad. Relying on junior brother Qin alone, you killed 3 immortal kings and crippled one. One of them was even a personal disciple of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect. Bai Wuya nodded. If it wasn't for the support of all senior brothers, how could things be so smooth? Qin Wentian shook his head. Your own strength is of utmost importance. Bai Wuya spoke. However, you have to be even more careful from now on. The Dongxing Gate will most probably keep an eye on you. Next time, change your mask. Also, the Dongxing Gate might make a move soon. Everyone, prepare yourselves. Everyone nodded. This battle was merely a warm-up. The battles at the back were the true challenges. Chapter 1385. Just like what Bai Wuya had predicted, very soon, the Dongxing Gate made a move. The scouts came to report that the 4 armies of the Dongxing Gate were advancing towards the Cloud Prefecture. Many people in the Cloud Prefecture breathed a sigh of relief. Those who had the ability to leave had already left. The ones who stayed were relatively ordinary cultivators, who could not cross the vast territory of the Cloud Prefecture. Now the 4 armies marched through the sky, heading straight for the Cloud Prefecture city. In this case, the main battlefield would probably erupt within the borders of the Cloud Prefecture city. The flames of war would not spread too far. However, they were still somewhat nervous. Who knew if there would be immortal kings suddenly appearing in the air above them? Immortal kings could easily traverse across vast distances. If this battle went out of control, there might still be other battles taking place in different locations of the Cloud Prefecture. When the 4 armies of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect set off, the major powers of the eastern regions immediately received the news. They had been paying attention to this battle, and in fact, there were already many experts from the eastern regions who had already arrived at the Cloud Prefecture. They were mixed in with the crowd and nobody knew about this. In fact, there were even some major powers outside the eastern regions who were paying attention to this battle. From a certain perspective, the battle between the Dongshangshan Gate and the Immortal Qianbian Gate was a continuation of the Emperor-ranked war that happened in the Evergreen Kingdom. If there wasn't that Emperor-ranked war, the final battle between these two powers wouldn't have erupted so early. With the 4 armies advancing at the same time, it was impossible for the Immortal Qianbian Gate to attack a single power. If they did so, the other 3 armies might directly attack the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Hence, the Immortal Qianbian Gate had no way to stop the advance of the Dongshangshan Gate. They could only allow the Dongshangshan Gate to advance to the outskirts of the Cloud Prefecture. The 4 armies advanced at the same time, arriving at the outskirts of the Cloud Prefecture almost at the same time. They appeared in the 4 directions of the Cloud Prefecture and directly locked down the entire city. The people of the Cloud Prefecture were shocked. Those who didn't leave felt uneasy. They did not expect the Dongshangshan Gate to be surrounded. Were they going to wipe out the Immortal Qianbian Gate in one fell swoop? The situation suddenly tensed up. A great battle was about to erupt at any moment. Almost everyone in the Cloud Prefecture city was fleeing, preparing to temporarily leave. Only immortal kings dared to remain in the city. Some immortal kings wanted to spectate this world-shaking battle. A battle between 2 great immortal sects was an opportunity that did not come by often. It was a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. Hence, some of the neutral immortal kings even felt somewhat excited. The Immortal Qianbian Gate acted as though they were facing a great enemy. Once, they gathered countless experts from the 6 prefectures, but nobody bothered with them. Many of them chose to flee. Why would they participate in such a battle for the sake of the Immortal Qianbian Gate? They were merely immortal kings who were in charge of a region. They weren't from the Immortal Qianbian Gate. When the Immortal Qianbian Gate was in charge of a region, they would listen to the orders given by the Immortal Qianbian Gate. But now that the war was about to break out, who would care about the Immortal Qianbian Gate? Of course, there were also some people who were incorporated by the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Unfortunately, the time that the Immortal Qianbian Gate had ruled these 6 provinces was too short, so they did not have much influence. If they had 10,000 years or even longer, the whole 6 provinces would truly belong to the Immortal Qianbian Gate. In this regard, the Dongshangshan Gate obviously did a better job. Therefore, in terms of the number of immortal kings, they had an absolute advantage and could crush the Immortal Qianbian Gate. At this moment, the same voice resounded throughout the entire Cloud Prefecture city. Within 3 days, evacuate the Cloud Prefecture city and the Dongshangshan Gate will be opened. 3 days later, the Dongshangshan Gate will be sealed. As this news circulated out, the entire Cloud Prefecture city was shaken. Some of the Immortal Foundation experts who were still hesitating also hurriedly left the Cloud Prefecture city, not daring to delay at all. Those who stayed behind were either immortal kings who wanted to spectate the battle, or those weaker characters who had no way to leave. These people were the most nervous and uneasy. In the Immortal Qianbian Gate, numerous immortal palaces were filled with experts, all of them heading towards a single location. Outside the Immortal Qianbian Gate, there was an army of Immortal Foundation experts. However, everyone understood that in a battle between Immortal Foundation experts, there was no suspense at all. The Dongshangshan Gate would definitely crush the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Back then when they fought against the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect, they had to rely on the manpower they gathered from the 6 prefectures, and even hired many Immortal Foundation experts to participate in the war. But now, after being swept away by the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect, the armies of the 5 prefectures either scattered or fled. The vast majority of these armies were from the Cloud Prefecture. They basically had no way to block the foundation of the Eastern Sage Immortal sect that had governed the 13 prefectures for countless years. Hence, everyone knew that in reality, the outcome of this battle still depended on the Immortal Kings. The Immortal Kings of the Immortal Qianbian Gate gathered at the public square in front of the Emperor Palace of Qianbian. The Immortal Kings gathered here represented the entire strength of the Immortal Qianbian Gate. The Emperor Qianbian walked over, standing on the platform as he swept his gaze over the Immortal Kings gathered here. I'm very proud that everyone can come here to fight for the Immortal Qianbian Gate. The Immortal Qianbian Gate has only been established for a short period of time, and we have yet to nurture any Immortal Kings. Everyone here are either those who followed me in the past, or those who joined the immortal sects and powers of the 6 prefectures after that. The Emperor Qianbian continued. There's no need for me to say more about the dangers of immortal wars. Now that the Dongshengshan Gate has already been surrounded, there will definitely be casualties among us. If we are destined to lose this battle, I will give the order for everyone to retreat. But if we are victorious, I will take care of the families and clans of those who died. As for those who survive, I will reward them according to the battle merits I promised earlier. Even if you didn't manage to kill the immortal kings of the enemy and your battle merits are lower, I won't mistreat you. Next, I will fulfill my promise and allow you all to choose your immortal weapons first. The Emperor Qianbian waved his hand. In an instant, hundreds of immortal weapons floated in the air, causing everyone to be dazzled. This scene caused everyone to sigh in their hearts. As expected of an immortal emperor, his collection was truly bountiful. Many of the immortal weapons here were extremely powerful, and were all high-grade immortal-ranked weapons. For the sake of this immortal war, the Emperor Qianbian took out these immortal weapons and bestowed them to them. Choose an immortal weapon that is most suitable for you, and refine it to familiarize yourself with it. We will make preparations for battle at any time. The Emperor Qianbian continued. Everyone nodded, and chose the immortal-ranked weapons that were most suitable for them. Many of them were extremely excited because the immortal weapons they obtained were stronger than any of the immortal weapons they had. The treasures of immortal emperors were truly extraordinary. This was the disparity between them. After everyone chose their immortal weapons, the Emperor Qianbian kept the remaining immortal weapons as he spoke. I still believe that the victory of this war will ultimately belong to us. Everyone, please return to your residences and make your preparations. The immortal kings bowed and departed. Very swiftly, only the Emperor Qianbian and Bai Wuya were left standing there. The Emperor Qianbian spoke. This time around, it won't be easy to deal with them. The Dongshengshan Gate already has an absolute advantage in terms of their own immortal kings, and they even borrowed external help. A battle at the immortal king level isn't decided by the number of people. The true deciding factor is still the peak stage immortal king characters. Bai Wuya spoke in a low voice. There's naturally this logic. This is why I'm worried. Before this, the Dongshengshan Gate has been waiting and didn't advance to the Cloud Prefecture city. According to our insider news, they are waiting for people. In addition to the 2 paragons and the peak stage immortal kings of the Dongshengshan Gate, their lineup is already very strong. The Emperor Qianbian spoke. The people Wentian brought over are also very powerful. There are a few peak stage immortal kings among them. I feel that they should be able to contend against the 2 peak stage immortal kings under the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. Bai Wuya spoke in a light voice. The eyes of the Emperor Qianbian flashed. He naturally knew that there were experts following Qin Wentian, but he didn't ask about it. But at this moment of life and death, he was certain that Qin Wentian would definitely allow those immortal kings to participate. Let's hope that Wentian's strength would be able to be of great use. The Emperor Qianbian nodded. Monarch, there's no need to worry too much. If immortal kings can't win, let's just initiate an emperor-ranked battle in advance. Bai Wuya's eyes gleamed sharply, causing the eyes of the Emperor Qianbian to gleam with sharpness as well. An emperor-ranked battle had great implications. Also, they all understood that this was a sensitive period in the eastern regions. If an emperor-ranked battle erupted, it might affect everything else. Hence, this was the final decisive battle. If not, they wouldn't have initiated an emperor-ranked battle. However, maybe everything can proceed according to the plan. Don't forget, we still have trump cards. Bai Wuya laughed. He exchanged a glance with the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord and nodded to each other. This war had already been planned since a very long time ago. From this point, it could be said that they had the advantage. Bai Wuya departed. The Emperor Qianbian turned his gaze towards the horizons. Victory or defeat would be determined by this battle. Would he be able to wash away the humiliation of losing to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and unify the 13 prefectures? Or would he be able to flee with his tail between his legs again? For this battle, he had waited for far too many years. He had to win and settle a matter that was weighing on his heart. From there, he would be able to wholeheartedly pursue an even higher cultivation realm. 3 days later, it was unknown how many experts left the Cloud Prefecture city. This city, which used to be bustling with activity, was now exceptionally quiet. On the streets, there were no signs of humans at all. It was like a city of the dead. Finally, on this day, in the airspace above the Cloud Prefecture city, the wind and clouds howled as the sky changed color. A supreme might enveloped the entire area. This was the might of an emperor. In the air, an incomparably gigantic throne appeared. After that, the silhouette of a gigantic figure appeared. This figure was incomparably majestic, so large that it was inconceivable. His eyes were the size of a small city, and he could destroy it with a single hand. He directly sat on the throne and stared at the Cloud Prefecture city with disdain. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor has arrived. The hearts of everyone trembled. This gigantic figure in the air was none other than the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Not only that, this was his true self. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor was personally supervising this immortal war, directing this immortal war between the Dongshengshan Gate and the immortal Qianbian Gate. A beam of light soared up into the air as lightning flashed. An incomparably dazzling silhouette appeared in the air, expanding in size to the same size as the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. He appeared in the air, staring down at the Cloud Prefecture city. This person was none other than the Emperor Qianbian. Chapter 1386. Two Immortal Emperors. Countless people inclined their heads and stared at the sky, feeling their hearts trembling. These two were immortal emperors, true hegemonic characters. With a wave of their hands, they could destroy a particle world. In the cities of the immortal realms, they were existences that stood at the peak of the immortal realms. It was rumored that back then, during the 100-year grand banquet of the Dongshengshan Gate, the Emperor Qianbian appeared, and the two of them fought to a draw. After that, the Emperor Qianbian forcefully seized 6 prefectures, and the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had no way to defeat Qianbian. Emperor Qianbian compromised and agreed to the Emperor Qianbian to divide the 6 prefectures. This was the reason why the immortal Qianbian Gate was formed. But everyone knew that this was only a temporary compromise. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor would definitely return and ruthlessly slap the Emperor Qianbian's face. Now, that day has finally arrived. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor appeared for the first time in the Emperor Qianbian's territory. Not only that, he did so in such a shocking manner. His army bore down on everything, wanting to destroy everything. Rumble. The earth in the Cloud Prefecture city rumbled as the 4 armies advanced from all directions. Everywhere they passed by, everything was razed to flat ground. The Dongshengshan Gate wanted to destroy the Cloud Prefecture city. This city was the shame of the Dongshengshan Gate. It would become part of the history of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. After this battle, the Cloud Prefecture city would no longer exist. This time around, the Eastern Sage Immortal sect had an army of over 100,000 immortals. How shocking was that? Their presence actually caused a resonance in the heavens and earth. Even from a very far distance away, the people in the Thousand Transformations Immortal sect could already feel the majestic pressure. The troops of the Thousand Transformations Immortal sect were all extremely nervous. This battle was truly a battle of life and death. Halt! At this time, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor opened his mouth. Instantly, the 4 armies stopped at a place far away from the immortal Qianbian Gate. They did not continue moving forward. How about a game of chess? Dongxing Heaven Emperor looked at Emperor Qianbian and said, Since it's an invitation from an old friend, I will naturally accept it. The Emperor Qianbian smiled. The two of them were not angry at all. The Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor waved his hand as an incomparably gigantic chessboard appeared in the air between the two of them. You are the guest. After you, said the Emperor Qianbian, extending his hand. Dongxing Heaven Emperor didn't stand on ceremony. He immediately placed his chess piece. His chess piece shone brilliantly and exuded a sharp intent. The Emperor of Qianbian smiled and placed a chess piece as well. His chess piece shone with a purple light, like a thunderbolt that could split everything in its path. Countless people below inclined their heads as their hearts trembled. Two immortal emperors actually had the mood to play chess? The armies below were all waiting for them. The two of them placed their chess pieces respectively. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor placed his chess piece first as he spoke, "Let's fight." As the sound of his voice faded, from each of the four armies of the Dongshengshan Gate, an expert stepped out. A total of 4 people stepped out, and all of them were at the initial stage of the Immortal King realm. Soldiers come, generals block them. Let's fight. The Emperor of Qianbian also placed his chess piece. Below, within the Immortal Qianbian Gate, Bai Wuya spoke, the other side has 4 initial stage Immortal Kings. At the same cultivation level, who is willing to fight? I'm willing. I'll go. More and more people spoke. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed as he spoke. Count me in. This time around, Qin Wentian had indeed changed into a mask. This mask exuded a unique aura, able to block out immortal senses, causing others to be unable to see his true appearance. Undoubtedly, among the people the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wanted to kill the most, he was one of them. Hence, it was better for him to keep a low profile and not be recognized. If not, during the final battle he might be surrounded and killed by the immortal kings. The 4 of you, head to the 4 directions and fight. Bai Wuya waved his hand. A moment later, the 4 of them, including Qin Wentian, were enveloped by immortal might. They instantly understood that they were chosen. After that, they stepped out and headed to different directions, advancing forward. Although the army of the Dongshengshan Gate had already surrounded them, they actually stopped very far away, leaving behind a vast space in the middle. Everything was being directed by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and the Immortal Qianbian Gate. The two of them seemed to be playing chess, but this was also a battle. Qin Wentian continued forward, only stopping when he encountered the Immortal King sent out by the other side. He didn't know what would happen to the other 3 battles, but since the Dongxing Heaven Emperor used such a method to announce the start of the battle, in that case, those who stood out to challenge him would surely all have extremely powerful combat prowess. Everyone knew this in their hearts. For this battle he had to win and kill his opponents. The Immortal King before Qin Wentian was a middle-aged man with a long face. His eyes gleamed sinisterly as a dangerous aura radiated from him. Rumble. Abruptly, an intense light erupted forth from Qin Wentian. He stomped on the air as his silhouette vanished with the speed of lightning. In the air, numerous afterimages appeared. These afterimages resembled a heavenly rock, shuttling through the air, causing the wind to howl in their wake. The long-faced middle-aged Immortal King released his law domain. In just an instant, black fog appeared in the air as the silhouette of a giant python appeared, breathing out poisonous black fog, enveloping the rapidly moving afterimages within his law domain. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The power of God's hand gushed forth from Qin Wentian. The power of God's hand was capable of activating everything, including movement techniques. Hence, Qin Wentian's afterimages grew even more resplendent, and his speed grew even faster. He was like a bolt of lightning arcing through the air. The terrifying black mist transformed into a giant python that frenziedly chased after him. Yet it had no way to catch up to his movement technique. The long-faced Immortal King furrowed his brows. Qin Wentian's speed was actually so fast. Also, under the envelopment of his poisonous fog, Qin Wentian's body wasn't affected at all. From this, one could see how strong Qin Wentian's defense was. His immortal sense frenziedly gushed out, wanting to lock onto Qin Wentian. Wuxia. The great rock silhouette shot over with lightning speed. Under the envelopment of his immortal sense, Qin Wentian was like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, he gathered a terrifying amount of energy. Numerous terrifying black dragon pythons appeared around him, breathing out black fog as they shot forward, wanting to devour Qin Wentian. Chi-chi. Abruptly, a dazzling destructive sword might erupted forth. The immortal vanquishing sword might unleashed by God's hand could lacerate everything. In just an instant, that beam of sword light expanded outwards, radiating boundless light. The darkness dragon python was directly torn apart. Even the poison chi was destroyed. The strongest beam of sword might directly blasted towards the body of the dragon python. Under the intense light, the long-faced immortal king turned pale. He punched out with a demonic fist, but he basically couldn't block the supreme killing might of this sword. A beam of sword light directly penetrated through his body. That sinister body of his also glowed with a resplendent sword light at this moment. That resplendent light illuminated a face of despair. With a piercing sound, the body of the long-faced immortal king was directly torn apart. A single strike, a sure kill. Beautiful. On the side of the Thousand Transformations immortal sect, the immortal kings used their immortal senses to observe the battle. When they saw Qin Wentian's tyrannical attack, expressions of excitement could be seen on their faces. This battle was won beautifully. Qin Wentian was extremely calm. He turned and headed towards the camp of the immortal Qianbian Gate. Such a challenge was the most direct, and also the most dangerous. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor and Emperor Qianbian were still playing chess, as though they didn't see the battle below. To them, this battle was merely the beginning. After that, the other three battles also concluded. The Thousand Transformations Immortal Sect won one battle, lost one. And as for the last battle, the disparity in strength wasn't too great. However, the immortal Qianbian Gate won the battle and killed their opponent, while the Dongshengshan Gate only heavily injured their opponent. For the first round of combat, it was clear that the immortal Qianbian Gate had the advantage, killing two of their opponents' immortal kings. However, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor continued to push his chess piece forward as he calmly spoke. Mid-stage immortal kings come out. As the sound of his voice faded, a mid-stage immortal king walked out from each of the four directions, moving towards the direction of the immortal Qianbian Gate. Who is willing to accept the challenge? Before the Emperor Qianbian even spoke, Wuxia already commanded from below. There was no need to say the word, accept the challenge. Soldiers come with generals, soldiers come with generals. Similarly, four experts stepped out. Two of them were original immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate, while the other two were masked and came from the heavenly talisman realm. These four battles were also held in the center of the battlefield, and were extremely intense. The final result was that both sides won 2 and lost 2, with 1 dead and 1 injured. The second round ended in a draw. Countless experts inclined their heads and stared at the sky. Early stage and mid-stage immortal kings had already stepped out. Next, it would be time for the peak stage immortal kings. Would the Dongxing Heaven Emperor allow people of this level to fight? This time around, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor didn't say anything. On the chessboard, a small-scale encirclement appeared, rampaging about tyrannically. Heavenly Dipper army come out. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, 36 immortal kings from each of the 4 armies stepped out. This time around, the entire immortal Qianbian Gate was shocked. Each of the 4 armies sent out 36 immortal kings, a total of 144 immortal kings. What a powerful formation, simply shocking. This was the foundation of the Dongshengshan Gate for countless years. They gathered many immortal king-level city lords and governors of the 13 prefectures back to the Dongshengshan Gate. On the chessboard, only now did the Emperor Qianbian discover that there were exactly 36 chess pieces from each of the 4 directions. They surrounded his chess pieces, and this caused the immortal Qianbian Gate to furrow their brows. It wouldn't be easy for them to win this round. The 4 armies of the Dongshengshan Gate clearly didn't come with good intentions. Chapter 1387. Wuxia also furrowed his brows. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor wanted to use such a method to start the prelude to the immortal war. He must have come prepared. The cultivation bases of these 36 immortal kings were all different, but when they moved forward, they seemed to be in a formation. The Heavenly Dipper army of the Dongshengshan Gate might be proficient in joint formations. Bai Wuya spoke in a low voice, his words causing everyone to be startled. Formations would undoubtedly be able to amplify one's attacks. A joint formation of 36 immortal kings. It was simply unimaginable how ferocious their attacks would be. If an unaffiliated immortal king were to face it head-on, those at the same cultivation level would only be slaughtered. Unless the cultivation base of the unaffiliated immortal kings was a level higher than the unaffiliated immortal kings, the unaffiliated immortal kings had to be extremely powerful. Saint Lord, we have also cultivated a joint formation. An expert from the Battle Saint tribe transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian, his words causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flash as he replied. How many people do we have? We have formations for 9, 36, and 81 people. But this is a formation that belongs solely to our tribe. Hence, it's impossible for us to teach it to others. Qiyu continued. In that case, the 36 of you will form a formation, and deal with one of the formations. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice. Although he could split the 36 of them into 4 9-man formations, the power of a 9-man formation would definitely be much weaker. If they were split into different battlefields, they wouldn't be able to guarantee absolute victory. In addition, it might even lead to the deaths of the experts from the Battle Saint tribe. Qin Wentian was the Saint Lord of the Battle Saint tribe. Since these people were willing to follow him out, he naturally had to be responsible for them. A 36-man formation would be able to guarantee absolute superiority over the other battle formations. We can form a formation and deal with one of the formations. The masked Qiyu spoke. The 36 immortal kings from the Battle Saint tribe were all wearing the same demonic ape masks. It was almost impossible to tell who was who. However, Qin Wentian didn't need others to be able to tell who was from the Battle Saint tribe. Alright, you guys fight in that direction. Bai Wuya pointed to the east and said. The opponents in that direction had the highest cultivation, and should be the most difficult to deal with. Bai Wuya was quite optimistic about the people brought by Qin Wentian. They should be able to win. At the same time, Bai Wuya continued to mobilize his troops, splitting them into 3 camps. Each camp had a leader, and these leaders all had masks on. Clearly, they were people from the Heavenly Talisman realm. Bai Wuya's expression turned heavy. He saw that the 4 camps of the Battle Saint tribe had already started to form their battle formations. The Dongshengshan Gate had truly made ample preparations for this battle. Also, there might be other powers participating in this. A 36-man Immortal King formation was something that the Dongshengshan Gate might not be able to bring out. Very swiftly, the 36 Immortal Kings from the Battle Saint tribe clashed with the people in the east. There were a total of 36 Immortal Kings, and they all stood in unique positions. They released their law domains, and as the light flashed, the 36 of them seemed to have merged into one. The cultivation bases of the people from the Battle Saint tribe were all very similar. When the 36 of them stood together, their energy seemed to be resonating as a startling light radiated from them. A towering battle might engulf the heavens and earth, wanting to destroy everything. The battle formation of the Battle Saint tribe was the Azure Dragon battle formation. Its aura was incomparably vast, shaking the heavens and earth. The shadow of a true dragon appeared, wanting to tear this space apart. Boom, boom, boom. A fearsome might erupted forth. The Battle Saint tribe activated the Azure Dragon battle formation, as boundless immortal law energy flowed into the shadow. A moment later, the Azure Dragon's shadow turned corporeal, floating in the air. Its head was incomparably majestic, its dragon claws gleamed with a cold light, and its scales gleamed with a cold light. Almost at the same time, an ancient ape appeared behind the experts of the Battle Saint tribe. The energy of these ancient apes congregated together, forming a divine ape that exuded boundless tyrannical battle might. It was none other than the Battle Saint tribe's Battle Saint tribe. In the other 3 locations of the Dongshengshan Gate, there was the Vermilion Bird battle formation. The entire sky and earth was dyed red as the boundless temperature melted everything in the world. That pair of incomparably sharp fiery wings flapped, sending waves of terrifying heat towards the experts of the immortal Qianbian Gate. There was the White Tiger battle formation. The war god White Tiger exuded a towering baleful aura, Like an unexcelled king of slaughter, its aura radiated an intense killing intent. There was also the Xuanwu battle formation. The Xuanwu divine turtle hovered in the air, resembling an unshakable gigantic castle. This battle formation was known as the Four Saints battle formation. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and Xuanwu each formed a formation, exuding boundless might. This was the sharpest weapon of the Dong Shengshan Gate, capable of piercing through the heart of the immortal Qianbian Gate, destroying everything. The situation of the battle was also reflected on the chessboard in the air. In the four locations, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's chessboard formed a formation, exuding boundless might. The Emperor Qianbian's chess pieces were as steady as ever. Facing the encirclement of the Azure Dragon, he used the most tyrannical stance, wanting to clash head-on with his opponent. Do you think you have a chance to break the formation? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly laughed. In fact, he didn't even glance at the chessboard below him. He was completely focused on the chessboard. And as his chess piece landed in the center, the four formations activated at the same time. Being too full of yourself is a great taboo. The Emperor Qianbian laughed. Below, the Azure Dragon roared, lunging towards the experts of the Battle Saint tribe. Just a single roar was enough to kill immortal kings. However, the Divine Ape also roared in rage. Two powerful sound waves clashed in the air, causing the entire space to tremble violently. Facing the sharp claws of the Azure Dragon, the Divine Ape lifted its gigantic palm and blasted out. A thunderous boom rang out, causing the entire sky to tremble. Boundless holy battle light radiated from the bones of the Divine Ape, transforming into boundless battle might. Boom! A heaven-shaking sound of collision rang out as the Azure Dragon claw was directly shattered. The chess piece in the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor's hand didn't land on the board. His eyes suddenly froze as he stared downwards as his countenance grew extremely unsightly to behold. Only to see that in the battle formation of the Battle Saint tribe, every single particle in the air contained a powerful battle aura. When the 36 of them attacked at the same time, beams of sacred light flashed as the heavens and earth rumbled. The might of the Battle Saint art manifested, wanting to destroy everything, directly blasting into the Azure Dragon. In an instant, the Azure Dragon crumbled unceasingly. The 36 experts that formed the Azure Dragon battle formation all groaned in pain. Roar! The Divine Ape let out a heaven-shaking roar, causing a few weaker immortal kings to cough out blood. After that, a terrifying gigantic palm descended from the sky. Those immortal kings turned ashen. There was basically no time for them to reform their formation. They hurriedly retreated, preparing to give up on the battle here and retreat. How ferocious was this palm imprint? In just an instant, over 10 immortal kings were destroyed. It was simply a complete suppression. Roar! Another heaven-shaking roar rang out. The Divine Ape stepped out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Both its palms blasted out in the air, causing the entire space to tremble. Those fleeing immortal kings felt their bodies trembling violently as their laws were thrown into chaos, as though they were being destroyed. After that, a gigantic palm that blotted out the sun extended outwards, grabbing towards the fleeing immortal kings. The expressions of the fleeing immortal kings were extremely unsightly to behold. They unleashed terrifying attacks, but without the amplification of the battle formation. How could they defend against such a fearsome attack? It was simply like an ant trying to shake a tree. They were directly destroyed. Even if they took out powerful immortal ranked weapons, it was useless. Several powerful immortal ranked weapons were directly destroyed. In just a few breaths of time, the 36 immortal kings were actually completely annihilated. This was simply too tragic. These 36 immortal kings were all immortal kings, the core pillars of the Dong Shengshan Gate. Yet, in just a few short seconds, they were all wiped out. The expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor turned extremely heavy. He spoke. These people, which clan or power are they from? Why don't I know? I have no idea as well. The Emperor Qianbian laughed. However, at this moment, someone from below spoke. Your Majesty, these people seem to be very familiar with the Immortal Foundation experts around Qin Wentian. Those Immortal Foundation experts even accompanied Qin Wentian into the Tiandao Sacred Academy before. Dongxing Heaven Emperor rarely paid attention to Immortal Foundation experts. However, there were people from the Dongxing Gate who paid attention to them. Every single word of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor rang through the entire Cloud Prefecture, allowing the people below to hear it. Hence, he spoke to the air, allowing the words of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to enter the Cloud Prefecture. Qin Wentian. An intense killing intent flashed in the eyes of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. 36 immortal kings actually didn't even have a chance to flee. All of them were killed. Even for him, he felt heartache in his heart. But since they have already died, he could only turn his attention to the other 3 battlefields. For the Vermilion Bird battle formation, his subordinates were able to suppress their opponents, and have already killed several immortal kings. The people who formed this battle formation were all immortal kings who were extremely proficient in fire attribute energy. Just the flames of the Vermilion Bird alone was sufficient to destroy their opponents. The immortal Qianbian Gate couldn't win this battle and suffered heavy losses. After that, they retreated. Turning his gaze over, he stared at the White Tiger battle formation. In that battlefield, the White Tiger transformed into a god of slaughter, exuding boundless might. The immortal kings who formed this battle formation were all proficient in killing. Hence, when the power of the formation was stacked together, it became extremely terrifying. However, in this battlefield, the immortal Qianbian Gate actually had quite a few extremely powerful experts. Although they were at a disadvantage, none of them were killed yet. The attacks of the White Tiger grew even more violent. All the immortal kings unleashed their attacks as killing intent engulfed the area. And at this moment, within the White Tiger battle formation, one of the immortal kings manifested a boundless sword light that slashed downwards. His killing intent permeated the entire space. Chi. Streams of sword might ravage the area as fresh blood splattered everywhere. Impudent. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly snorted, his expression extremely unsightly to behold. This immortal king actually killed his own people, those who formed the White Tiger battle formation, and attacked the immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate who were caught off guard. In such a tense moment, such a powerful strike was undoubtedly fatal. Instantly, 4 immortal kings were killed and many others were injured. The White Tiger battle formation was instantly thrown into a state of chaos. Before everyone could react, that immortal king directly soared into the sky with his sword. At the same time, the experts of the immortal Qianbian Gate also rushed over to assist him. Chapter 1388. Traitor Spy. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor had an unsightly expression on his face. As an immortal emperor, even the death of an immortal king wouldn't be enough to make him frown. But now, there were so many unforeseen events that he couldn't feel at ease playing chess with the Emperor of Qianbian. The Eastern Azure Dragon battle formation was completely wiped out. The enemy's cultivation bases and battle formations were all stronger, and these people actually had a connection with Qin Wentian. This originally already made the Dongxing Heaven Emperor extremely unhappy. And now, a traitor actually appeared within his Dongxing Gate. This traitor had been hiding all this while, and no one had discovered it. It was only at such a crucial moment that he suddenly acted, dealing a fatal blow. The situation of the battlefield changed in an instant. The White Tiger battle formation, which originally had the upper hand, crumbled. The Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor's countenance turned extremely unsightly as he stared at the scene before him. Qianbian, I didn't expect you to be so despicable. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor stared at the silhouette of the Emperor of Qianbian. Eastern Sage, you are in the wrong. This is an immortal war. Within the rules, both sides can use their own methods. If your men manage to infiltrate my immortal Qianbian Gate, would you miss out on such an opportunity? The Emperor of Qianbian emotionlessly spoke. This was a true war. Being merciful to one's enemies was akin to being cruel to oneself. Within the rules, there was no need to hide any methods. This time around, those chosen by my Dongxing Gate are all immortal kings who have been in our sect for many years. Even before the establishment of your immortal Qianbian Gate, you actually sent your men in? Could it be that you have been planning to deal with my Dongxing Gate since a long time ago? In that case, after you were defeated, you have always been unwilling and wanted to make a comeback? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. Naturally, in order to pursue a higher cultivation realm, I first have to wipe away all my regrets. Even if I don't have a strong desire for power, I still have to take control of the 13 prefectures. Even if I might abandon them in the future, at the very least, I have to seize them back. The Emperor of Qianbian stared at the Dongxing Heaven Emperor as he spoke. Haha, seems like you have already forgotten the humiliation of being defeated in the past. In that case, I will let you taste the taste of defeat again. The Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor laughed loudly, exuding an intense confidence. Below, the battles of the White Tiger battle formation ended one after another. Because of the sneak attack by the traitor, the Eastern Sage Immortal sect suffered a terrifying blow. In addition, Wuxia seemed to have intentionally chosen some extremely powerful elite immortal kings for this battle formation, causing the situation to reverse. The Eastern Sage Immortal sect's immortal kings were all defeated, and many immortal kings were killed. As for the Battle of the Black Tortoise battle formation, Dongshengshan Gate won. The experts of the Immortal Qianbian Gate also lost several immortal kings. Usually, the lofty immortal kings were characters that could become lords of their own territories. Many of them had already fallen in this war. The immortal wars between emperor-ranked powers were always so cruel and merciless. If these immortal kings went to a small city, they would all be kings. If they went to a major city, they would all be considered hegemons. It was only on the battlefield that they were so insignificant, as though they were insignificant. Haha, Eastern Sage, you are so confident. However, you didn't even gain the slightest advantage in these 4 battle formations. In fact, it can be said that your Dongshengshan Gate has lost. The Emperor of Qianbian's laughter was filled with coldness. Immortal kings were the core strength of the army. The death of each immortal king was a loss, but in an immortal war, it was unavoidable. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor had a heavy expression on his face. The 4 Saints battle formation was a killing move they prepared. But 2 victories and 2 defeats. Not only that, one of the defeats was a complete annihilation. Such a battle result could only be considered a defeat. Since this is the case, let's see the true strength of both sides. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's voice was ice cold. As the sound of his voice faded, the chess piece in his hand landed once more, directly into the heart of the Emperor of Qianbian. It was like a bugle call for war. As the sound of his voice faded, the 4 paragons in the 4 directions issued a command at the same time. Dongshengshan Gate's Immortal Foundation Army, kill them all. Annihilate all Immortal Foundation experts who block your path. Raise the entire Immortal Qianbian Gate to flat ground. As the sound of their voices faded, the atmosphere turned solemn. The Emperor of Qianbian's countenance changed as he spoke. Only immortal kings can decide the outcome of this war. Why is there a need to let the blood of Immortal Foundation experts flow on the ground? In terms of Immortal Foundation, my army has an absolute advantage. Since you wanted 6 prefectures back then, and these people are willing to join you, it means that they are my enemies. Since this is the case, I naturally have to tell the cultivators of the 13 prefectures what the consequences of opposing me are. As long as fresh blood flows in the Cloud Prefecture, from now on, there will no longer be any powers other than my Eastern Sage Immortal sect who would dare to rule over any of the 13 prefectures. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor calmly spoke. The army of Immortal Foundation experts launched their attacks. Although the destructive power they could create was far inferior compared to immortal kings, it was still incomparably shocking. Just that might alone was sufficient to cause the hearts of people to tremble. For those spectators in the Cloud Prefecture city, their hearts trembled when they heard the words of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. As expected of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, the reason he initiated this war wasn't simply to defeat the Immortal Qianbian Gate. He wanted to completely destroy the Immortal Qianbian Gate, killing all the experts of the Immortal Qianbian Gate, and razing it to the ground. From then on, no one would dare to contend against the Dongshengshan Gate. At the very least, he wanted to be the absolute hegemon of the 13 prefectures. Fight! Wuxia's voice was filled with killing intent. The Immortal Foundation experts of the Immortal Qianbian Gate gradually gathered into a battle formation. Instantly, A violent might gushed forth as they moved in 4 different directions. Since a battle was unavoidable, they could only accept it. The armies swiftly clashed in the airspace above the Cloud Prefecture city. Just a single attack was already filled with boundless might, causing the sky to change color. As the intense rumbling sounds rang out, more and more experts fell from the air. In such a large-scale battle, the strength of humans was insignificant. Only some powerful battle formations could display tyrannical might. An example was the battle formation formed by Chida and the other members of the Battle Saint tribe. Everywhere they passed by, the experts of the Battle Saint tribe would be smashed apart like dried weeds and smashed rotten wood. Everywhere they passed by, the experts of the Battle Saint tribe would be killed. There were also some extremely powerful Immortal Foundation characters who had the strength to fight in all directions, sweeping through everything. For example, there was a slender figure in white. His speed was extremely fast and he wielded a long spear. Samsara energy gushed forth from his eyes, able to cause people to sink into a trance with just a single glance. After which his long spear swept out, killing with a single strike. Piercing sounds rang out unceasingly. And in just a short instant, over 10 Immortal Foundation experts had already died in his hands. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor was still playing chess with the Emperor Qianbian. But in truth he could clearly see the situation of the entire battlefield. Given how powerful his immortal sense was, it could cover the entire battlefield. As long as he wanted to know, no details would be able to escape his eyes. Is that the disciple of the myriad incarnations immortal king? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor frowned, feeling somewhat unhappy. The first time he met this young man was during the grand banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate. Back then, this young man was the personal disciple of the beautiful myriad incarnations immortal king. Your Majesty, this young man is named Hua Taishu. He once joined forces with Qin Wentian, and the two of them have always been very close. Back in the city of ancient emperors, he even acted against our Dongshengshan Gate. An immortal king replied. He pointed his finger at Hua Taishu as he coldly commanded, "Kill him." Myriad incarnations is here? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor turned his gaze to the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate below. Among them, there were many immortal kings with masks on. There were quite a few with slender figures. They were all female immortal kings. At this moment, one of the immortal kings took off her mask. It was none other than the beautiful myriad incarnations immortal king. She stared at the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. "I pay my respects to your Majesty." "You want to oppose me?" the Eastern Sage Immortal King calmly asked. "Your Majesty, my disciple had some conflict with your subordinates and was implicated. Even for me, I also encountered some trouble because of this. This little girl had no choice. I hope that your Majesty won't blame me." The myriad incarnations Immortal King smiled. "Since you have already thought things through, it's enough." The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke, but his eyes flickered with killing intent. A just cause enjoys abundant support. Eastern Sage, don't be angry. Who asked the people of your Dongshengshan Gate to be the hegemon of the Dongxing Immortal Sect? You can't tolerate the slightest bit of disrespect from others. The Emperor Qianbian coldly spoke. Many experts rushed towards Hua Taishu. With a flick of his spear, many people were dazed for an instant. After which, sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly as the Immortal Foundation experts in the surroundings were all annihilated. "Very good, your talent is truly powerful. I've learned many things from you." The Dongxing Heaven Emperor was somewhat unhappy. On the Immortal Foundation battlefield, there were actually so many powerful characters appearing. This was especially so for that group of people from the Battle Saint tribe. These people should have a connection with Qin Wentian. Why don't I see Qin Wentian? Doesn't he hate me to the core? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor calmly spoke. He glanced below, but within his immortal sense he didn't see Qin Wentian. Those masked experts were all immortal kings. Could it be that that brat from back then had already broken through to the immortal king realm so quickly? If this was the case, he really had to get rid of that brat. Leaving him alive would only be a calamity. Qin Wentian's strength is so weak. Eastern Sage, you actually have the time to pay attention to him? The Emperor of Qianbian laughed. He didn't say where Qin Wentian was, allowing the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to guess for himself. Earlier, Qin Wentian had already fought a battle. Although he masked his features, if the Dongxing Heaven Emperor used his immortal sense to probe into Qin Wentian's body and sense his aura, he might be able to discover that Qin Wentian was none other than Qin Wentian. But as an immortal emperor, it was disdainful for him to use his immortal sense to probe an initial stage immortal king. Since he dares to insult me, I naturally have to pay attention to him. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor spoke coldly. When the two of them fought, Bai Wuya's brows were tightly furrowed. Although their immortal Qianbian Gate had many outstanding immortal foundation experts, their disadvantage in numbers was simply too terrifying. Their immortal foundation experts kept falling. It was clear that the other party wanted to kill them all. In this case, they could only initiate an all-out war. Prepare for battle. Bai Wuya spoke. After that, the immortal kings all stood in their positions. They had already split into 4 camps and would head to the 4 directions to fight against the immortal kings of the other party. Can't endure it any longer? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly laughed. The 4 paragons waved their hands, preparing for an all-out war at the immortal king level. Chapter 1389. Staring at the immortal kings below. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor also launched an all-out attack. He placed his chess piece down and laughed. Qianbian, the number of immortal kings we have will definitely crush you all. How will you all fight? Have you gone senile? When has a battle between immortal kings ever been decided by numbers? The Emperor Qianbian calmly spoke. For a peak stage immortal king, even if you have 100 initial stage immortal kings, what's the use? You would still be insta-killed one by one. Cultivation base and combat prowess are the true determinants of victory. Have you forgotten the time when Bai Wuya single-handedly appeared and killed Deep Flame? Humph. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor couldn't help but snort coldly when he heard the other party mentioning Deep Flame's death. Deep Flame was also an immortal king who had followed him for many years, and had many battle achievements. It was just that he didn't expect Bai Wuya to have always been hiding his strength. Bai Wuya was so strong that he could kill Deep Flame, not allowing Deep Flame to escape. After entering the Tiandao Sacred Academy, Bai Wuya actually broke through to the Immortal Emperor realm. Out of the 2 people that the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was most unhappy with towards the Immortal Qianbian Gate, the Emperor Qianbian wasn't one of them. After all, the Emperor Qianbian was merely a loser back then. Even if he lost 6 prefectures, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor would definitely take revenge. However, Bai Wuya and Qin Wentian were both juniors, causing him to be extremely unhappy. To think that you, Qianbian, are still so stubborn. The immortal king army of my Dongxing Gate can crush you all in terms of numbers, but do you think that our combat prowess would be weaker? Just wait and see. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. Below, the battles in the 4 directions had already started to clash. Immortal kings stood in the air, pulling the distance between them apart, occupying a vast space. In a battle at the immortal king level, every single one of them needed a vast space as their battlefield. Even if they formed battle formations, they still needed to expand the space between them. The experts of the Dongxing Gate had a 4 saints battle formation in each of the 4 major directions. There was actually a total of 7 battle formations. If it wasn't for the fact that one of the battle formations had been completely annihilated, they would have 8 battle formations. Powerful immortal kings would appear in the surroundings of every 4 saints battle formation, assisting the battle formation in battle. At the same time, when an expert of the battle formation died, there would be a substitute. The reason why the 7 saints battle formation was able to be formed was because some of the people who died earlier were substituted. Apart from the battle formation, there were also many elites who were prepared to fight freely. There was no lack of extremely powerful figures among them. This way, the power of the Celestial King tier army could be unleashed to the extreme. In the eastern direction, the 36 immortal kings of the Battle Saint tribe were guarding there alone. In this direction, the immortal Qianbian Gate had the least number of people, but because they were proficient in joint formations, in addition to the fact that their cultivation bases were high, the 36 of them were all at the mid-stage of the Immortal King realm or above. Among them, 20 were mid-stage immortal kings and 16 were peak-stage immortal kings. Among the peak-stage immortal kings, 6 of them were at the late stage of the peak stage and had terrifying strength. In addition, among the 6 of them, there were already 3 who had reached the peak stage of the immortal king realm. Previously, they had easily wiped out one of the enemy's battle matrices. It was almost an absolute suppression. Hence, it was not an exaggeration for them to take charge of one side now. Moreover, there was only one battle matrix on this side. They had just wiped out the other battle matrix. How arrogant! The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly snorted when he saw this scene. You have also seen the might of the battle formation earlier. In addition to their cultivation bases, there are 16 peak stage immortal kings. So what if they stand alone? The Emperor Qianbian spoke. Although there were many immortal kings in the Dongshangshan Gate, the number of initial stage immortal kings was the highest, followed by mid-stage immortal kings. The number of peak stage immortal kings was naturally the least. The immortal Qianbian Gate had a much lesser number of immortal kings, but they didn't lack any peak stage immortal kings. Let's just wait and see then. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly snorted. Qin Wentian was in the northern direction. He didn't stand together with the people from the Battle Saint tribe. After all, the experts of the Battle Saint tribe formed a battle formation and could stand alone in one direction. The northern battlefield was under the control of one of the 4 paragons, Paragon Golden Cauldron. He himself was also a peak stage immortal king and stood at the very peak of the immortal king realm. His strength was extremely terrifying. And for Qin Wentian's side, there was also a leader. It was a senior from the Heavenly Talisman realm who wore a mask. Earlier when he was chatting in the Immortal Sect, he heard that this senior was surnamed Tuoba, but he didn't know his exact name. Many people from the Heavenly Talisman realm were very respectful to him and referred to him as Senior Brother Tuoba. Other than his fellow disciples from the Heavenly Talisman realm, the beautiful myriad incarnations Immortal King was also present. This caused Qin Wentian to feel somewhat taken aback. Back then, his senior brother by Wuxia and the myriad incarnations Immortal King were both guests in the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's particle world. That was the first time he met them. Now there was actually a chance for them to fight side by side. The other party formed 2 grand battle formations. One was the Vermilion Bird battle formation. The other was the Xuanwu battle formation. There were also many immortal kings protecting them. In the center, Paragon Golden Cauldron stood, and behind him, there seemed to be another extremely powerful character, who seemed to be in the core position of the Dongshangshan Gate's immortal kings. Who is this person? Qin Wentian silently mused. The Dongshangshan Gate initiated this grand war, wanting to destroy the immortal Qianbian Gate in one fell swoop. They must have made ample preparations. Other than the 4 paragons, they must have other trump cards up their sleeves. At this moment, a supremely powerful beam of immortal light radiated from that figure. In an instant, boundless law light enveloped the entire space, enveloping all the immortal kings of the Dongshangshan Gate within. After that, a resplendent beam of law light directly seeped into their bodies. In an instant, the immortal kings of the Dongshangshan Gate were all shrouded in a holy light as their auras actually rose up. A supplementary technique that can strengthen one's strength. The expressions of the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate all changed. The formation of the enemy was already extremely terrifying. In addition to this technique, the strength of everyone instantly rose to another level. This was undoubtedly a fatal blow to their immortal Qianbian Gate. There's actually such a technique. Qin Wentian frowned. He knew that there were some unique law attribute techniques or innate techniques that could amplify one's combat prowess. But this person was able to amplify the strength of others, and was extremely suitable for group battles. Paragon Golden Cauldron's expression was cold and tyrannical. Before this, they delayed their attack on the Dongshangshan Gate, because they were waiting for a few people. The person behind him was none other than one of those people. Although he firmly believed that even if they weren't here, victory would still be theirs. But with the assistance of these people, they would be able to destroy the enemy with the lowest price. Today shall be the doomsday of the immortal Qianbian Gate. Paragon Golden Cauldron coldly spoke. But at this moment, Immortal King Tuoba stepped out as law might gushed forth from him. For a moment, his law domain enveloped all the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate. This law domain shone with a resplendent holy light as a powerful suction force could be felt from it. Don't resist. Use all your law energy to cover my law domain. I will be able to borrow it. Immortal King Tuoba spoke. After that, everyone nodded and didn't resist the suction force. Instead, they frenziedly released their immortal energy, allowing it to be absorbed by Immortal King Tuoba's law domain. This energy frenziedly seeped into Immortal King Tuoba's body, causing his body to expand in size. He was like a peerless immortal king, standing at the forefront of the immortal Qianbian Gate. This Immortal King Tuoba's name was Tuoba Saint Sky. He has been cultivating in the heavenly talisman realm for many years. Because of the uniqueness of his astral souls, he grew stronger step by step in the Immortal King realm, and his law domain also grew stronger. Right now, his law domain was known as the Law Assimilation Domain, able to assimilate all law energy for his own use. It was extremely tyrannical. As for his own cultivation base, he was naturally strong enough to be able to create such a shocking law domain. Clearly, he had immersed himself in the Immortal King realm for many years, and his comprehension was extremely high. His cultivation base had already reached the peak of the Immortal King realm, and he was also a rare genius in the Heavenly Talisman realm. This time around, after he graduated from the Tiandao Sacred Academy, he was only a step away from the Immortal Emperor realm. As expected, both sides have their own trump cards. Qin Wentian silently mused when he sensed Tuoba Saint Sky's aura rising. Regardless of the Dong Shengshan Gate or the Immortal Qianbian Gate, both of them had made ample preparations and were slowly displaying their strength. Kill. Paragon Golden Cauldron spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the Xuanwu battle formation spat out icy water, causing the entire space to freeze. The intense coldness caused everyone to tremble. At the same time, the Vermilion Bird battle formation spat out heaven-incinerating flames. Two completely different types of energy gushed forth in different directions. Tuoba Saint Sky's body shone with a resplendent holy light. It was as though he possessed supreme strength. He slapped out with his finger as a wall of astral light appeared, blocking the water and fire. Boom boom boom. Violent auras gushed forth as the experts of the Dong Shengshan Gate rushed over. Paragon Golden Cauldron received the augmentation from his energy as a gigantic golden cauldron manifested in the air. In the surroundings, millions of golden cauldrons spun rapidly as they all rushed over. With a thunderous boom, the wall of astral light shattered as the experts of the Dong Shengshan Gate rushed over. Sever his connection with the others. Paragon Golden Cauldron commanded. Tuoba Saint Sky punched out with both fists. His fists glowed with an indomitable golden light as he directly blasted towards the two battle formations. The law energy in the surroundings was all assimilated into the sharpness of metal. Assimilation? Is he able to convert the law energy he assimilated into the law attribute of any of his opponents? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor glanced at the battlefield as his expression turned unsightly to behold. At this moment, there were many shocking peak stage immortal kings appearing. However, why would the immortal Qianbian Gate have so many powerful peak stage immortal kings? Eastern Sage, your preparations are truly ample. All four directions actually have an amplification effect. Are these people all from your Dong Shengshan Gate? The Emperor Qianbian took the initiative to ask. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor froze. He didn't expect the Emperor Qianbian to snatch the words he wanted to say. He couldn't help but to speak in a cold manner. What about you guys? How many years has the history of the immortal Qianbian Gate only existed for? Where did these peak stage immortal kings come from? Haha, you're the same here. The Emperor Qianbian laughed, as though he was intentionally misleading the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Chapter 1390. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor was indeed misled by the Emperor Qianbian. After all, his Dong Shengshan Gate had external reinforcements. These reinforcements originated from the allied powers of the Evergreen Kingdom back then, and the Emperor Qianbian was most definitely one of them. As for the other hidden powers in the immortal realms, they had yet to be discovered. After all, the Heavenly Talisman realm had always been low-profile and cautious in their actions. Even if they discovered some clues, it would be hard for them to trace back to the source. If it wasn't for this mission to unify the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, the Heavenly Talisman realm wouldn't have revealed so many of their experts. After all, so many experts who weren't part of the immortal Qianbian Gate would easily attract suspicion. However, it was temporarily impossible for the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to think of the Heavenly Talisman realm. He naturally thought of the other major powers instead. At this moment, the two supreme characters in the air no longer had the mood to continue playing chess. The true battle had already erupted. Powerful experts clashed against each other. For battlefields, immortal kings exuded destructive auras as they fought. Even immortal emperors like them felt fear in their hearts. In the battlefield where Qin Wentian was at, Tuoba Saintsky's strength was extremely powerful. His assimilation law domain had already reached the peak of perfection, and he could instantly transform his law attributes into attacks. In addition, these attacks were all laws that didn't belong to him. The might of each of his attacks was extremely terrifying, and the immortal kings on the other side had the advantage in numbers. They started to surround Tuoba Saintsky, preparing to sever the connection between him and his allies. The Black Tortoise battle formation acted as a meat shield, preparing to block Tuoba Saintsky's attacks. The Vermilion Bird battle formation focused on offense while Paragon Golden Cauldron controlled everything else. That augmentation expert was still behind them, and was blocked by the immortal kings. There was no need for him to participate in the battle, but his role was more important compared to everyone else on the battlefield. Boom! When Tuoba Saintsky saw that someone wanted to surround him from the side, he willed it, and in an instant, a heaven-shaking gravitational law domain descended. This vast void gave birth to a terrifying gravitational law domain. This was Tuoba Saintsky borrowing the law attribute power of others. On the battlefield, he needed to be able to flexibly use the various elemental laws in order to unleash his strongest power. After the power of gravity, it was the power of space. Qin Wentian punched out with both fists, manifesting boundless might, directly penetrating through the void, instantly landing in two different directions. The two immortal kings roared in rage as they retaliated. However, under the might of that fist might, they were directly destroyed. The two immortal kings were instantly killed. Paragon Golden Cauldron had an ugly expression on his face. His body floated in the air as a gigantic cauldron descended from the sky, crushing down on the world. The entire space felt like it was about to be suppressed. That gigantic cauldron didn't attack Tuoba Saintsky. Instead, it attacked the people behind him who offered their law energy to him. Only by severing the connection would Tuoba Saintsky no longer be so powerful, and not be so passive. Upon seeing Paragon Golden Cauldron's actions, everyone knew what to do next. But at this moment, Tuoba Saintsky acted again. This time around his target was the immortal king at the back. Paragon Golden Cauldron's expression froze when he saw this. Block him! The Black Tortoise battle formation instantly appeared in front of Tuoba Saintsky. Tuoba Saintsky's eyes gleamed with coldness as he roared. His fists radiated an unexcelled might, ignoring all the attacks aimed at him, and slammed into the Black Tortoise battle formation. A terrifying shockwave gushed forth, shattering everything. With a thunderous boom, the Black Tortoise battle formation crumbled apart. The immortal kings who formed the battle formation were all forced back to different locations. At the same time, a spatial screen appeared around Tuoba Saintsky, blocking all the attacks. The attacks were all aimed at him, wanting to break free from the restraints of the spatial energy. Boom! The gigantic golden cauldron slammed down, destroying the spatial energy. However, Tuoba Saintsky didn't seem to notice it. His two palms were like the palms of divinity, grabbing towards the immortal king of the immortal Qianbian Gate. That immortal king's expression changed as he retreated. "Where do you think you are going?" Tuoba Saintsky coldly spoke. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying devouring might manifested in his palms. Instantly, the entire space trembled as boundless currents were sucked into his palms. The expression of that immortal king instantly turned extremely ugly to behold. He felt that he couldn't move at all. "Kill him!" That immortal king roared. Paragon Golden Cauldron and the Vermilion Bird Battle Formation unleashed their attacks, directly aiming for Tuoba Saintsky's head. Flames of slaughter that could incinerate the heavens and earth blasted out. However, Tuoba Saintsky was still incomparably domineering. His entire body was enveloped by 3 layers of law energy. His palms radiated a devouring might as they neared the immortal king. After that, a grand freezing law energy appeared, causing the immortal king's body to freeze. Boom! A supreme destructive palm slammed down, directly shattering the immortal king's body. Even if the immortal king was a peak stage expert, he wouldn't be able to withstand Tuoba Saintsky's attack that was augmented by the law energy of the immortal kings. And at this moment, Tuoba Saintsky's body as well as the defensive barrier behind him also suffered from the terrifying attacks, and was on the verge of collapse. Many immortal kings rushed to the back. As long as they could break through the defensive barrier, they would be able to slaughter their way to those immortal kings who unleashed their law energy on Tuoba Saintsky. If that was the case, this Tuoba Saintsky formation formed by everyone would collapse, only to see Tuoba Saintsky retracting his palms. His entire body was engulfed by the destructive flames, as though he was about to be incinerated. He inclined his head and glanced at the Vermilion Bird Battle Formation, before punching out with both his fists. At this instant, his fists shone with a supreme holy light, akin to meteors in the starry space, containing a boundlessly heavy might that could destroy everything. His fists penetrated through the boundless destructive flames, slamming into the battle formation. With a deafening sound, the battle formation crumbled apart. The immortal kings inside all groaned in pain as they retreated one after another. And almost at the same instant, Tuoba Saintsky's attacks from the back were about to break apart. He inclined his head and roared in rage. This roar shook the heavens and earth, containing killing intent within. At the very last moment he could still borrow the power of his immortal energy to roar out. Some of the weaker immortal kings directly bled from the 7 apertures of their heads. Tuoba Saintsky punched out with his fists, punching into the void. After which, sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly. Those immortal kings who were heavily injured were all heavily injured, and many of them died from the impact. Tuoba Saintsky's main mission this time around was to kill that immortal king who amplified his attacks as well as to break apart the enemy's battle formation. By doing these 2 things he would have already achieved his first goal. The connection was finally severed. Numerous immortal kings appeared behind Tuoba Saintsky, launching attacks at the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate. Paragon Golden Cauldron turned ashen as he stared at Tuoba Saintsky. He coldly asked, "Who are you? Such a powerful character. Why would he be in the immortal Qianbian Gate?" Also, he had never heard of this character before. He really wanted to see the face under the mask. Tuoba Saintsky didn't reply. He simply punched out. Even without the amplification from the immortal kings, his attack was still exceedingly powerful. At the same time, he frenziedly absorbed the energy of the heavens and earth for his own use. In fact, even when Paragon Golden Cauldron dissipated the law energy, Tuoba Saintsky could still borrow it. This was simply terrifying. This caused Paragon Golden Cauldron's expression to turn heavy. At the back of the battlefield, 2 immortal kings appeared before Qin Wentian. However, both of them were initial stage immortal kings. After all, his aura was that of an initial stage immortal king. Although the number of immortal kings of the Dongshengshan Gate clearly surpassed the immortal Qianbian Gate in terms of numbers, they still needed to distribute their opponents evenly. Now that the battle formation was broken apart, they could only search for their own opponents. Qin Wentian was an initial stage immortal king. With 2 immortal kings at the same level as him, this was already a clear indication of the superiority of the Dongshengshan Gate in terms of numbers. Qin Wentian stared at the 2 immortal kings before him. One of them had an immortal-ranked weapon in his hand, and wielded a terrifying gigantic axe that radiated a fearsome sharpness. To immortal kings, ordinary immortal-ranked weapons wouldn't be able to amplify their strength, unless it was a powerful treasure with a cultivation base higher than them, or an immortal-ranked weapon that was extremely compatible with their law attribute. That person directly chopped down with his axe. His speed was as fast as lightning, causing a line to appear in the air. As for the other person, he grabbed towards Qin Wentian as a mysterious law energy enveloped Qin Wentian, causing him to feel as though he was being obstructed by a formless energy. Boom! A dazzling light radiated from Qin Wentian's body. God's hand activated the law energy in his body. He lifted his palm, akin to a divine weapon. Runic light flashed in his palm as devil might churned. He directly grabbed out, grabbing hold of the gigantic axe. A thunderous boom rang out as the axe exploded in Qin Wentian's palm. His palm trembled, but it wasn't split apart. Qin Wentian stared at his opponent, exuding an unexcelled tyrannical might, causing the heart of his opponent to tremble. After that, Qin Wentian blasted out with his palm as terrifying destructive lightning gushed forth. This entire space was like the end of the world. The power of judgment directly blasted into his opponent's body, ignoring all defenses and directly splitting it apart. It was so fast that his opponent couldn't even react in time. His gaze froze. He glanced at Qin Wentian before retreating. This person was very strong. He wasn't a match for him at all. Qin Wentian stepped out with speed as fast as lightning. He grabbed out with his palm as the destructive power of darkness blasted out. His opponent turned ashen, and after that, Qin Wentian stabbed out with a finger, penetrating into his body. That immortal king screamed in agony as he was instantly killed. Right now, although Qin Wentian was only at the initial stage of the immortal king realm, if he fought seriously, there wouldn't be many people who could stand against him. 2 initial stage immortal kings were merely sending themselves to their deaths. They wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Qin Wentian glanced at the battlefield and stepped out, killing his way to other locations. Although they had broken the enemy's formation, the immortal Qianbian Gate was still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. If they wanted to obtain victory in this battle, the disciples of the Heavenly Talisman realm had to take on an extremely important mission. They had to fight against several opponents at the same time and kill their opponents. Only by doing so would they be able to obtain victory. Chapter 1391. On Qin Wentian's side, Tuoba Saint Sky was the leader while the other 3 locations were also experiencing intense battles. The 36 experts from the Battle Saint tribe formed a powerful battle formation that contained boundless might. They stood alone against hundreds of immortal kings, and were surrounded by a terrifying encirclement. However, the might of the battle formation formed by the experts of the Battle Saint tribe was simply too overwhelming. Although the 4 sacred battle formation was also a powerful formation, not everyone was suitable for it. They could only choose immortal kings who were more suitable for the formation. However, it was different for the experts from the Battle Saint tribe. That battle formation was created specifically for them, and the 36 of them could unleash their full power as they wished. In addition, the cultivation bases of the 36 experts of the Battle Saint tribe were all very high. 16 peak stage immortal kings. How terrifying was this? The others were all mid-stage immortal kings. Hence, they were able to suppress their opponents earlier. When they released their Battle Saint might at the same time, the entire space was filled with an intense battle might that swept over everything. For every attack, if someone dared to face it head-on, they would die for sure. There were already over 10 immortal kings who died in their hands. That immortal king didn't dare to face them head-on, and could only restrict them while borrowing the strength of everyone to surround them. All sorts of immortal weapons were taken out, aiming for the experts from the Battle Saint tribe. However, no one dared to get too close. In the air, that incomparably gigantic divine ape roared out, causing the entire space to tremble. The initial stage immortal kings coughed out blood as their bodies trembled unceasingly, feeling like they were about to be killed by that roar. Sever their formation. We can't allow them to form such a connection. That paragon in the air coldly commanded. Although the 36 experts from the Battle Saint tribe were in different locations, they were all enveloped by the formation. When they attacked one of the immortal kings, the power of the formation would instantly converge on that immortal king. In such a battle, if they couldn't break the formation, they could only slowly be hunted down by the experts from the Battle Saint tribe. The expressions of everyone grew unsightly. What sort of characters were these immortal kings? who didn't know that they had to sever the connection between the experts from the Battle Saint tribe before they could break the formation. However, they basically had no chance at all. Using their individual strength to fight against such a formation was akin to an ant trying to shake a tree. Their battle formations didn't even dare to face their opponents head-on, only to see that the experts of the Battle Saint tribe in the battle formation all folded ancient seals as a divine glow radiated from them. Their bones glowed with a holy battle light as beams of battle radiated from them, cascading downwards from the sky. The gigantic divine ape hammered its chest before it pressed its palms together, and similarly formed an ancient seal, causing the eyes of the surrounding experts to freeze. This gigantic divine ape actually also formed an ancient seal, causing the entire space to resonate with it. All of them could feel the overwhelming battle might radiating from this boundless space. Careful, don't interrupt them. Paragon Skyrock, who was in the air, roared. Although he wasn't allowed to participate in the battle, he could still command the troops. Paragon Skyrock could already sense the resonance of the battle energy in the surroundings. The 36 Immortal Kings formed a battle formation, and the battle bloodlines and bones of the Immortal Kings were all resonating with each other. This caused him to have a bad premonition. He could faintly sense that this attack would definitely be earth-shattering. When the boundless battle energy congregated together, the divine ape howled in rage, causing the entire space to tremble. A gigantic battle character appeared and expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire space. This ancient character contained the terrifying auras of the 36 Immortal Kings. After that, the 36 Immortal Kings pushed out their palms at the same time. The battle character gushed forth, and in an instant, a torrent of battle energy appeared, wanting to destroy everything. The countenances of the Immortal Kings all drastically changed. All of them gathered their strongest attacks and frenziedly attacked the ancient character. But when their attacks landed on the ancient character, they were instantly shattered into dust, transforming into nothingness. Boom! The ancient character arrived before an Immortal King at the forefront. That Immortal King directly came into contact with the resonance of the battle energy, and was instantly turned into dust, dispersing with the wind. He didn't even have the time to scream. Evade! Paragon Skyrock roared again. The Immortal Kings seemed to have sensed something and directly fled the battlefield while unleashing their strongest attacks to defend. Swish, 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 swish. As the ancient character for battle swept past, Immortal Kings were incessantly turned into dust. Even the battle formation was instantly destroyed. When the ancient character for battle swept past, half of the Immortal Kings in the formation were directly killed while the other half suffered varying degrees of injuries. Some of them had to rely on treasures to survive. Even the Immortal Kings in the battle formation were in such a state. There was no need to mention anything about the others. The ancient character battle continued to weaken, eventually transforming into boundless battle might that dissipated into the air. But in this battlefield, the Immortal Kings of the Dongshengshan Gate were only left with tens of Immortal Kings. Naturally, the battle formation formed by the experts of the Battle Saint tribe was about to dissipate. The divine apes vanished as their auras fluctuated wildly. This attack exhausted a great deal of their strength, but they still maintained their formation. They sat cross-legged in the air, and actually closed their eyes. The Immortal Kings of the Dongshengshan Gate, who were still alive, felt a lingering fear in their hearts. Their countenances were pale and extremely ugly to behold. They didn't dare to recklessly attack again. The chess piece in the hands of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was crushed. His expression turned ashen as he glanced at the experts of the Battle Saint tribe. The same bloodline. Even their bones contain battle might. This must be a powerful ancient tribe. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's heart trembled. However, why hadn't he heard of such an ancient tribe in the immortal realms before? Also, why were these people following Qin Wentian? Although he admitted that Qin Wentian's talent was extremely high, his cultivation speed was extremely fast and his combat prowess was also ferocious. His cultivation base was still too low. He was only at the Immortal Foundation realm. How could he have so many Immortal Kings following him? This didn't make sense at all. Eastern Sage, seems like it's useless to have more people. In that battlefield, you guys have the greatest advantage in numbers. But you seem to be in the most miserable state. The Emperor Qianbian laughed. In the eastern battlefield, only the 36 immortal kings of the Battle Saint tribe were present. Even he didn't expect such a situation would occur. The people around Qin Wentian were actually able to take charge of the battle independently. This would undoubtedly lessen a lot of the pressure on him. That attack caused them to suffer a great deal of exhaustion. Victory and defeat isn't decided yet. In addition, there are still other battlefields. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. The battles in the southern battlefield were also extremely intense. The various experts were frenziedly clashing against each other. The Dongshengshan Gate was still using battle formations as the main force, with the immortal kings supporting them. This was similar to Qin Wentian's battle. In fact, there was also an extremely powerful character behind them. This character was proficient in mental energy, and could stimulate the battle wills of the experts of the Dongshengshan Gate. At the same time, he also caused the people of the immortal Qianbian Gate to feel despair that they would definitely lose. Within his law domain, everyone's mental state would be affected. Spirit-type illusionary arts. By cultivating the law of illusions to a certain degree, one would be able to create a mental illusionary domain. Dongxing Heaven Emperor, such a character was also nurtured by your Dongshengshan Gate? The Emperor Qianbian asked. As long as we can obtain victory in this war, does it matter if he is nurtured by my Dongshengshan Gate or not? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly laughed. Of course it matters. If he is nurtured by your Dongshengshan Gate, I'm afraid you would feel heartache. But if he isn't, it would be others who would feel heartache. The Emperor Qianbian laughed. What do you mean? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. But at this moment, he frowned as he stared into the distance. In the next instant, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense permeated the void. He could sense a fluctuation that originated from the void. His immortal sense actually couldn't detect who the other party was. He could only sense that there was someone shuttling through the void, not in the same world as everyone else. The expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor changed. After that, he transmitted his voiceover. Careful. The person who specialized in spiritual illusions furrowed his brows. His senses were extremely sharp. At this moment, he also sensed an unusual aura rapidly approaching. His eyes suddenly turned and looked in the direction of a certain direction. Terrifying spiritual energy rushed out, but he could not find a foothold. He could not lock onto the other party's position. A sword slashed over. The cold light illuminated the sky, causing everyone to be unable to open their eyes. The sword light that was as cold as the moon shot out with extreme speed. An incomparably powerful immortal king appeared from the void, unleashing a powerful attack. He grabbed out with his palm as he unleashed his mental illusions. But in the next instant, that beam of light instantly vanished without a trace. It came and went without a trace, but the sense of danger grew even more intense. He hurriedly retreated, but at this moment, spatial fluctuations could be felt behind him. His expression was one of shock, wanting to turn, but a beam of sword light shot out from the void once more, piercing out with extreme speed, accuracy and ruthlessness. Pucci! A sword slashed through his throat. That expert didn't even have the time to turn back as an extremely cold sword appeared in his throat. After that expert retracted his sword, his silhouette flickered as he vanished from sight once more. The countenance of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor grew even more unsightly. This time around, he had made ample preparations and invited many extraordinary characters. Not only did he have battle formations, he even had peak-stage immortal kings that could amplify his attacks and weaken his opponents. However, the preparations of the immortal Qianbian Gate seemed to be even more thorough. Also, what made the Dongxing Heaven Emperor feel a chill was that the other party seemed to have seen through all of their battle strategies. Traitor! The Dongxing Heaven Emperor once again thought of the traitor. The Dongshengshan Gate didn't just have a single traitor. The Emperor Qianbian had already sent people to infiltrate his Dongshengshan Gate many years ago. And it wasn't just a single traitor. Right now, these traitors might even be the core members of the Dongxing Heaven sect. Chapter 1392. The war has already started. Even if the Dongxing Heaven Emperor knew that there was a spy, he didn't have the time to investigate. In addition, there was no longer any time for him to think about the spy. That assassin was a peak-stage immortal king, and his assassination arts were definitely at the peak. Even for him, he had no way to see the movements of the assassin earlier. He only knew that there was someone hiding in the void, and he knew that the assassin had created a unique law domain. Such a law domain in addition to his assassination arts was simply too terrifying. A powerful peak-stage immortal king that was proficient in illusions was killed in an instant. However, the assassin didn't stop there. His silhouette instantly vanished into the void, and when he reappeared, a mid-stage immortal king was directly pulverized by the sword light. Fresh blood splattered through the air. Such a scene caused the immortal kings of the Dongxing Gate to feel a chill in their hearts. Not only did they have to fight, they also had to be on guard against such terrifying assassins. They basically had no way to fully focus on the battlefield. The pressure on the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate was instantly alleviated. Swishing sounds rang out as another 2 immortal kings were killed. Let alone the people of the Dongxing Gate. Even the immortal kings of the immortal Qianbian Gate felt their hearts trembling. Luckily, this peak-stage immortal king assassin wasn't someone from the Dongxing Gate, or they would be in for it. Even peak-stage immortal kings wouldn't be able to block such an assassination art, let alone low-stage and mid-stage immortal kings. There's basically no power in the eastern regions that could nurture peak-stage immortal kings. The Namhuang clan doesn't have any as well. The expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor grew incredibly unsightly. The might of a peak-stage immortal king assassin was clearly displayed on the battlefield. Eastern Sage, I've already reminded you before. A battle at the immortal king level isn't determined by the number of people. A peak-stage immortal king that's extremely powerful can control the entire situation. The immortal king of the immortal Qianbian Gate spoke. He then continued. As for where he came from, could it be that all the immortal sects nurture their disciples according to their own predetermined path? Every cultivator has their own unique talent and comprehension. Their predecessors can only guide them as to what path they should take. As for what kind of expert they can become in the end, that depends on themselves. For people, you guys have prepared 4 peak-stage immortal kings with unique abilities. There are also many immortal kings wearing masks. I'm very curious, where did they come from? Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. The 4 people he was referring to, other than Tuoba Saint Sky, who was in the battlefield where Qin Wentian was in, as well as this assassin, there were 2 other powerful immortal kings in the other battlefield. These 2 immortal kings were extremely powerful. One was the main attacker while the other could raise the combat prowess of others. They were somewhat similar to the people he was preparing. These 4 experts, in addition to the people from the Battle Saint tribe, formed the core of the immortal Qianbian Gate. They were all existences that could control the situation of war. However, this was the Immortal King battlefield. If one were to look down at the Immortal Foundation battlefield, the Dongxing Gate had the absolute advantage. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, but the people from the Immortal Qianbian Gate were in an even more dangerous situation. If this continued on, it was unknown how many experts would die. Eastern Sage, just retreat. You have no way to take down my immortal Qianbian Gate. If you continue fighting, even if my immortal Qianbian Gate doesn't exist in the 13 prefectures, your Dongxing Gate would have no way to rule over them. Sooner or later, you would become a vassal force of others. Emperor Qianbian spoke as he stared at the experts falling one after another. Dongxing Heaven Emperor had a heavy expression on his face. Retreat? This time around, the Dongxing Gate came in a grandiose manner, cutting off all means of retreat, bringing with them a resolute conviction. They would definitely eradicate the immortal Qianbian Gate and unify the 13 prefectures. If they retreated just like this, their plan of attack would be for naught. Seizing the 5 prefectures would have no meaning at all. In fact, their Dongxing Gate would become a laughingstock, and the momentum would be completely in the hands of the immortal Qianbian Gate. In the future battles, they would no longer have the initiative. The immortal Qianbian Gate must be destroyed. Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. The cruel battle still continued. The battlefield of the 4 Immortal King level experts was in the air above the Cloud Prefecture, while below was the battlefield of the Immortal Foundation experts. It was unknown how many experts would die. Immortal Foundation experts who had cultivated to a certain level were merely cannon fodder. Even Immortal Kings who were lofty could die at any moment, because Immortal Emperors were the ones in charge of the war. In the air, another group of experts descended. They directly came to the side of Dongxing Heaven Emperor as they called out, "Father! You guys can go and choose your own battlefield." The Dongxing Heaven Emperor spoke. Emperor Qianbian glanced at these experts as he spoke. "Dongxing, you even sent out all your descendants to participate in this war. Do you really want to cut off all means of retreat? If they die, don't go crazy." Battles of life and death are the best way to temper people. In addition, it's not so easy for them to die. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. His descendants glanced at the battlefield as they all stepped out. As the eldest son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Dongxing Yin was extremely powerful. He directly walked towards the battlefield where Qin Wentian was at. His target was Tuoba Saint Sky. At this moment, Tuoba Saint Sky was currently fighting against Paragon Golden Cauldron. Dongxing Yin descended and punched out with his fist. A moment later, numerous demonic dragons manifested, their roars shaking the mountains and rivers as they rushed towards Tuoba Saint Sky. Other than Dongxing Yin, there was another son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, who also walked towards the battlefield. His name was Dongxing Kuan. His strength was also extremely powerful, at the mid-stage of the Immortal King realm. Seems like that old dog Eastern Sage is willing to pay any price to destroy the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian's expression turned cold. Back then, he once used the identity of Di Tian to kill the youngest son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Dongxing Ting, causing the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to be infuriated. However, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had many descendants and many of them were at the Immortal King realm. This was especially so for his eldest son. He had already reached the peak stage of the Immortal King realm. In addition to the Emperor-ranked armor he wore, his might was even more terrifying, comparable to peak stage Immortal Kings. At this moment, Qin Wentian was currently hunting initial stage Immortal Kings, and he had already killed quite a few of them. For Immortal Kings, even in the chaotic battlefield, they would still be able to lock onto their opponents. Hence, everyone would do their best to fight against those at the same level as them. Unless they had absolute superiority, they wouldn't choose to fight against those with lower cultivation bases. This indicated that the situation was already one-sided. Only to see that Qin Wentian killed yet another initial stage Immortal King. At this moment, Dongxing Kuan turned his gaze over as coldness flickered in his eyes. With a step he dashed towards Qin Wentian, appearing before Qin Wentian in an instant, blocking Qin Wentian's path of slaughter. Qin Wentian's eyes were extremely cold. A son of the Eastern Sage Immortal King? Dongxing Kuan unleashed his law domain. As a mid-stage Immortal King, even though he was only at the initial stage, his law domain was still extremely terrifying. His law domain had the power to lacerate everything. Holy light shone behind him as his bloodline power erupted forth, causing his aura to reach a terrifying level. Die! Dongxing Kuan coldly roared. A violent storm of lacerations gushed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's expression turned heavy as light circulated around him. That fiend god physique of his was unexcelled in the world. The lacerations had no way to break through his law energy. This scene caused Dongxing Kuan to frown. An initial stage Immortal King was actually able to block his law domain attack? Boom! Muffled sounds of thunder rang out. He lifted his fist, shining with holy light as he punched out. This punch seemed to be infused with the light of the heavens and earth, sweeping through everything. The fist light was extremely dazzling, containing a destructive might that could lacerate everything. This punch directly tore through the void. There was basically no time to react. Law energy gushed forth from Qin Wentian as he blasted out with his palms, manifesting a terrifying palm imprint of destruction. The two attacks collided, creating a destructive shockwave. Qin Wentian retreated as devil might gushed forth from him. A devil saber appeared in his hands. MHM. At this moment, Paragon Golden Cauldron glanced over. He then spoke, "Careful, he is the one who provoked my Dongshangshan Gate and killed Wang Yu. His saber arts are extremely bizarre." Before this, Paragon Sky Rock warned everyone. Paragon Golden Cauldron instantly knew that Qin Wentian wasn't the only one who acted against him. Hence, everyone in the Dongshangshan Gate knew of his existence. After all, he had killed the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Wang Yu. Qin Wentian directly slashed out with his saber. The churning devil might gushed forth like a ferocious dragon, slashing towards Dongxing Kuan. Dongxing Kuan lifted his fist and punched out. An even more powerful fist light swept out, shattering the saber light. Qin Wentian didn't hesitate and continued slashing out with his saber. The devil light in the air grew even more violent, containing a terrifying destructive might and sharp sword intent. Boom! Dongxing Kuan took a step forward, incomparably domineering as he blasted out a chain of punches. The heavens and earth resonated as holy light gushed forth. The might of his punches grew even stronger. The heavens and earth collided again. The saber light and the fist light were destroyed together, exuding terrifying might. Boundless destructive devil might gushed forth, infusing into Qin Wentian's devil saber. With a single slash, the space within 100 miles was destroyed. Dongxing Kuan seemed to want to see how strong Qin Wentian's devil saber was. He domineeringly stepped out and with a roar of rage, his fists stacked on top of each other, breaking apart everything. The devil saber was shattered once again. Qin Wentian inclined his head as a demonic light flashed in his eyes. The wind and clouds howled as the devil might converged into a supreme saber intent. This saber intent seemed to have its own spirituality as it hummed in the air. The fourth saber strike? Dongxing Kuan's eyes were cold. His palms slashed out, causing a blinding holy light to shine. Both his fists punched out at the same time, covering the entire space. "Kill!" Qin Wentian emotionlessly spoke. As the saber slashed out, Dongxing Kuan only felt a devil saber of destruction appearing in his soul. After that, the saber slashed out, dodging the fist light as it slashed towards Dongxing Kuan. "Careful!" The Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor stared at the battlefield. In an instant, a black-colored armor appeared around Dongxing Kuan, shining with the light of draconic scales. With a slash of his saber, Dongxing Kuan was sent flying through the air. Chapter 1393. What sort of character was Dongxing Kuan? He was the son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. He would naturally have powerful treasures on him. That armor of darkness protected every corner of his body, and a sharp mask covered his entire face. Only a pair of cold eyes could be seen, coldly staring at Qin Wentian. Soul attack, your fourth saber strike actually contained the power of a soul attack. Dongxing Kuan stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke, his words causing the others to be startled. This masked man was actually proficient in soul attacks? Was this the secret hidden within that mysterious fourth saber strike? Only to see Dongxing Kuan taking out another powerful divine weapon. This was a pair of gloves, and after wearing it, the aura radiating from Dongxing Kuan's palms grew even stronger, several times stronger than before. "You are truly as shameless as your father, using divine weapons to deal with people whose cultivation bases are lower than yours. How shameless!" Qin Wentian mocked. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor in the air furrowed his brows. He seemed to have heard this person's tone somewhere before. Killing your enemies is the #1 goal on the battlefield. Dongxing Kuan coldly spoke. He lifted his hands again as his law domain erupted forth. An even more powerful might gushed forth, and when his fist light blasted out once more, it blotted out the sky, piercing through space and blasting towards Qin Wentian in an instant, sweeping away everything in its path. Boom! Qin Wentian frenziedly unleashed his law domain. This was the domain of God's hand, filled with destructive devil might. Boundless God's hand manifested, unceasingly blasting out to defend against his opponent's attack. But right now, Dongxing Kuan had no fear at all. With 2 divine weapons in his hands, how could he not kill Qin Wentian on the spot? That would be his greatest humiliation. Qin Wentian had no trace of fear at all. He stepped out, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying might. Within his law domain, devil law energy churned intensely, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. In the air, the silhouette of a supreme devil appeared as a supreme devil will descended, piercing into Dong Xingquan's eyes. At this moment, Dong Xingquan actually felt a sense of submission, wanting to submit to Qin Wentian. You guys invited a devil cultivator from the myriad devil islands? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. Such a powerful devil art wouldn't exist in the immortal realms. Only a place like the myriad devil islands would have such a powerful devil art. The Emperor Qianbian coldly laughed. How could the Dongxing Heaven Emperor not know who this person was? But it was no wonder. How could he have imagined that the immortal foundation character he looked down upon would already be able to fight against his son, Dong Xingquan, who was at the mid-stage of the immortal king realm? Dong Xingquan blasted out with his fist, while Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms. Even if you borrow the power of a divine weapon, you won't be able to kill me. Qin Wentian spoke arrogantly. Stepping out, the devil might he exuded grew stronger and stronger, wanting to dominate the world. Dong Xingquan was naturally unwilling to accept this. He stepped out and frenziedly attacked. The distance between the two of them got closer and closer as his attacks shook the sky, wanting to destroy everything. The eyes of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor stared at the battlefield. Under the pressure of the devil might, Dong Xingquan's will grew weaker and weaker as his aura dissipated. On the other hand, Qin Wentian's aura grew stronger and stronger. His palms frenziedly blasted out attacks. The god's hand within his law domain could destroy everything. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's expression kept changing. His immortal sense swept out, directly probing Qin Wentian's body. Sensing Qin Wentian's aura. Eastern Sage, what are you doing? The Emperor Qianbian coldly spoke when he sensed Eastern Sage's immortal sense seeping into Qin Wentian's direction. He is Qin Wentian? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's expression was extremely ugly to behold. After the adjudication battle concluded, Qin Wentian was still at the 9th level of Immortal Foundation. How many years has it been since then? In just 10+ years, not only did he step into the Immortal King realm, he even stepped into the late stage of the initial stage. His combat prowess could even contend against his son, a mid-stage Immortal King. You only discovered this now? The Emperor Qianbian coldly laughed, confirming the guess of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. At this instant, a terrifying light gleamed in the eyes of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor as he stared at Qin Wentian. It's best not to interfere in the battlefield. The 1,000 Transformations Emperor Lord calmly spoke. At this moment, Qin Wentian borrowed the power of the devil might, causing his aura to soar to the extreme. Countless streams of God's hand converged into a gigantic palm imprint that could annihilate the heavens and earth, blasting towards Dong Xingquan. Dong Xingquan roared in rage. His fist might gushed forth, wanting to destroy everything as the heavens and earth trembled. Dong Xingquan's holy fist light shattered everything as he continued to rush towards Qin Wentian. Go to hell. A thunderous sound rang out. His fists penetrated through everything, slamming into Qin Wentian's immortal body of laws. At this instant, numerous gazes turned over. Even the Emperor Qianbian froze. What was Qin Wentian doing? Why didn't he take out his divine weapon to fight? He actually allowed his opponent's attack to land. As for the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, a cold smile appeared on his face. He was very clear of Dong Xingquan's strength. If this punch landed, it was sufficient to take Qin Wentian's life. Qi. From Qin Wentian's eyes, 2 beams of terrifying devil light shot out. It was like a devil blade directly slashing into Dong Xingquan's soul, causing Dong Xingquan to instantly lose consciousness. After that, Qin Wentian lifted his hands and stabbed out with his fingers towards Dong Xingquan's eyes. You dare! The Dongxing Heaven Emperor sat up from his throne, his rage towering up into the sky. Qin Wentian's body was flung through the air from the impact. His fingers also stabbed out as 2 beams of destructive saber intent directly pierced into Dong Xingquan's eyes. An instant later, a scream of agony rang out. This attack didn't merely pierce through Dong Xingquan's eyes. Dong Xingquan clutched his eyes with both hands as his body fell from the air. Quan. From afar, Dong Xinyan's expression was filled with shock when he saw this scene. How could this be? Could it be that the reason Qin Wentian endured that attack was because he wanted to find a weak point in Dong Xingquan's armor and deliver that attack into Dong Xingquan's eyes? Qin Wentian himself was also flung through the air. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as a ruthless light flashed in his eyes. This attack should be sufficient, right? Even if Dong Xingquan didn't die, he would still be crippled. Dong Xingyin and Paragon Golden Cauldron both rushed towards Dong Xingquan, temporarily leaving the battlefield. As for Tuoba Saint Sky, he flew towards Qin Wentian, instantly arriving beside Qin Wentian as he asked, "Are you all right? If I was killed by the son of that old dog Dongsheng, wouldn't that be too embarrassing?" Qin Wentian removed his mask, revealing his pale countenance. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor in the air. Vile creature! The killing intent in the eyes of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor soared to the extreme. At the same time he felt shock in his heart. How could this be? Under Dong Xingquan's attack, Qin Wentian was actually still in such a state of mind? It was as though he was merely injured and his life wasn't in danger. On the contrary, his attack had almost taken Dong Xingquan's life. Dongxing Heaven Emperor, don't forget the rules. You are the one who allowed your son to participate in the battle. You cannot interfere. The Emperor Qianbian coldly spoke. He also stood up, facing the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Kill him. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor icily commanded. His killing intent towards Qin Wentian had already reached the extreme. Many experts rushed towards the direction of Qin Wentian, wanting to kill Qin Wentian. This was also the reason why Qin Wentian chose to conceal his identity earlier. Tuoba Saint Sky and the others all sped over, standing guard beside Qin Wentian. With Qin Wentian at the center, an earth-shattering battle erupted. This time around, even those rational immortal kings forgot to search for opponents of the same level as them and started a chaotic battle. The other three battlefields were also extremely intense. Several figures rushed over from another battlefield. They were none other than Qi Yu and the other two peak-stage immortal kings. They were all peak-stage immortal kings, and their immortal senses were extremely powerful. When they learned that Qin Wentian was in danger, they immediately rushed over. Only in that battlefield, the remaining 33 immortal kings were more than enough to deal with it. The three peak-stage immortal kings appeared and unleashed their battle saint art. In just an instant, numerous immortal kings died. Right now, the immortal kings were like ants, slaughtered frenziedly. Kill him. Qin Wentian pointed his finger at Dong Xingyin as he spoke. Since the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wanted to kill him, he would kill his son Dong Xingyin. Qi Yu and the other two nodded and directly rushed towards Dong Xingyin. Three gigantic palm imprints covered the sky as they blasted towards Dong Xingyin. Impudent! The Dongxing Heaven Emperor was so angered that his face turned ashen. Back then, an ant-like character from a particle world whom he had given up on as a disciple actually forced him to such a state? How preposterous! Dongxing Heaven Emperor, you are the one who initiated this immortal war. Are you unable to bear the consequences now? The Emperor Qianbian coldly spoke. Stop the battle. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke when he saw the three peak-stage immortal kings surrounding Dong Xingyin. An immortal war isn't something you can stop just because you want to. The Emperor Qianbian spoke. At this moment, the silhouette of Paragon Sky Rock shot over, radiating his emperor might, enveloping the area below, causing the expressions of the three peak-stage immortal kings to change. Bai Wuya's silhouette flashed as he appeared before Paragon Sky Rock. His eyes were terrifying as light cascaded downwards. Similarly, Emperor Might gushed forth, enveloping Paragon Sky Rock. However, at this moment, another Paragon character appeared. It was a Paragon at the Immortal Emperor realm. Upon seeing the three peak-stage immortal kings surrounding Dong Xingyin, he stepped out and grabbed out with his palm. A powerful force directly blocked Qi Yu's attack, and even forced Qi Yu back. Bzz. A beam of sword light shot over from the horizons, shooting towards Dong Xingyin. At this moment, Dong Xingyin inclined his head as a look of terror appeared on his face. The expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor changed as his eyes gleamed with sharpness. Inner flee. He roared, but it was too late. That beam of sword light was simply too fast. With a piercing sound, Dongxing Yin was directly killed. He didn't even have the chance to resist. At this moment, an immortal emperor appeared in the air, descending onto the battlefield. This man was clad in long robes and exuded a transcendent aura. The expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor turned ashen, as gloomy as water. Of his 2 sons, one was blinded and crippled while the other was killed. No matter how good his endurance was, he couldn't endure it any longer. A fearsome wave of emperor might bore down from the sky. How dare you be so impudent? The emperor might of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor enveloped everyone. If it wasn't for an immortal emperor interfering, he would have already been killed. Since you guys broke the rules, you naturally have to pay the price. That immortal emperor coldly spoke. Chapter 1394. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's rage seemed to want to incinerate this entire space as a fearsome might gushed downwards. Price? The price is to kill my son? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor roared in rage. His palms slammed downwards as a thunderous boom rang out. The immortal Qianbian Gate's grand hall was razed to flat ground. Dongxing, you allowed your descendants to participate in the war, allowing them to temper themselves through life and death. When they encountered danger, your subordinates interfered. This is already a violation of the rules of the immortal war. If your subordinates didn't interfere, Dongxing Yin would have died. What qualifications do you have to be angry? The Emperor Qianbian blocked the path of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, his eyes gleaming with coldness. As to why emperor-ranked battles wouldn't erupt so easily, it was unknown how many people would be implicated if they did. But when they saw Dongxing Yin's death, everyone understood that there would definitely be an immortal emperor-ranked battle today. Also, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor would definitely not spare the immortal Qianbian Gate. This immortal war would no longer be a matter of who could leave the 13 prefectures. Most probably, things would go out of control. This was also because the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was too overconfident. He felt that not only would he be able to expel the immortal Qianbian Gate, he would also be able to completely destroy the immortal Qianbian Gate, burying them here to intimidate the world. But as the war erupted, things didn't go as smoothly as he had imagined. The strength of the immortal Qianbian Gate was so strong that it caused his heart to tremble, surpassing his expectations step by step. This lasted until he allowed his descendants to participate in the war, until Dongxing Kuan was blinded and crippled by Qin Wentian. Right now he was still under the protection of Paragon Golden Cauldron. At that time, he was already extremely enraged, but he endured it and didn't act. He gave the order to kill Qin Wentian. He wanted Qin Wentian to die to avenge his son Dongxing Kuan. However, not only was Qin Wentian not killed, his eldest son Dongxing Yin, a peak-stage immortal emperor, was ambushed and killed by an immortal emperor. In addition to the fact that his youngest son Dongxing Ting was assassinated by a mysterious person in the God Hand Mountain Manor. This had already exceeded the limits of what Dongxing Ting could endure. For countless years he ruled the 13 prefectures and was incomparably awe-inspiring. Now that all his children had died, how could he endure this? Below, the battles at the Immortal Foundation level all halted. In fact, there were even many among the immortal kings who halted their steps as they stared at the sky in shock. Dongxing Heaven Emperor spared no expense to destroy the immortal Qianbian Gate. This time around, the immortal Qianbian Gate also acted ruthlessly, killing Dongxing Yin. This meant that they wouldn't rest until one of them died. What right do I have to be angry? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's aura became even more violent. The starlight in the sky shone on his body, containing a shocking radiance. His huge body was like a god. I want all of you to die. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor roared in rage. Emperor Qianbian's body was also bathed in boundless divine light. His aura enveloped Dongxing as he spoke. In that case, let the battle begin. Rumble. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor didn't attack Emperor Qianbian. He stretched his hand out as a towering palm imprint blasted towards Qin Wentian, Qi Yu and the others. The ones he wanted to kill first were none other than Qin Wentian and Qi Yu. Dongxing Heaven Emperor, don't forget that your children are still here. If you do this, all of them will die together. The Emperor Qianbian icily spoke. Boundless lightning crackled around him as he shot towards the other children of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, radiating a towering killing intent. If the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wanted to kill them all, even if Dongxing Heaven Emperor used all his strength to defend, Dongxing Heaven Emperor might still be able to find an opportunity to take advantage of. As the sound of this cold voice faded, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor halted his attack. His cold eyes stared at the Emperor Qianbian as he shouted, "Everyone, how long are you guys going to continue watching the show?" From an extremely far away location, there seemed to be an aura drifting over. This caused everyone to understand that so many major characters of the eastern regions weren't just paying attention to this battle. In fact, they had already personally arrived. It's just that they didn't show themselves. Numerous figures stepped out, instantly causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. Many of these figures were supreme characters whose names shook the entire eastern regions. All of them were true hegemons at the peak of the immortal realms. "Dongsheng, are you angry because you lost? This isn't like you." A voice rang out. Dongsheng's expression was extremely unsightly to behold. The person who spoke was none other than the Chongqing the Great. His words were filled with mockery. He had indeed lost the bearing of a hegemon. However, he couldn't care so much anymore. Today he had to kill some people no matter what. "Chongqing, you went crazy just because I wanted your daughter to marry into the Sky Mist Empire. And today there are people who killed my children. What do you think I should do?" The Dongxing Heaven Emperor stared at the Chongqing the Great. Back then, they could be considered to have some friendship. After all, they were both peak characters of the eastern regions, immortal emperors. They were naturally acquainted with each other, and their relationship could even be considered quite good. It was just that because of the complicated relationship between Qin Wentian and Qin Wentian and the immortal Qianbian Gate, Dongshengshan Gate, and the immortal Qianbian Gate, Dongxing Heaven Emperor stood on the opposite side of the Chongqing the Great. In fact, he even stood on the opposite side and participated in the emperor-ranked battle. In that case, their so-called friendship naturally turned into ashes. After that battle, they became enemies. How can you even be qualified to speak of my situation in the same breath? The Chongqing the Great coldly mocked. You were the one who wanted to send your children to participate in the war. Due to his lack of skills, he was killed by others. If you want to blame someone, ask yourself first. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's expression turned extremely ugly to behold. However, he had no way to refute this. Also, he knew that the reason why the Chongqing the Great stood out to mock him was because of Qin Wentian. After the adjudication battle, the Chongqing the Great announced to the world that his daughter, Evergreen Qing, would be betrothed to Qin Wentian. This Qin Wentian was his future son-in-law. Also, this future son-in-law of his was so outstanding, rising up in the immortal realms in a short few tens of years, his name shaking the entire eastern regions. Right now, he has already broken through to the immortal king realm, and even defeated a mid-stage immortal king, Dongxing Kuan. Such an accomplishment was truly shocking. Evergreen, your words aren't right. Although an immortal war erupted between both sides, isn't it a little too brazen for an immortal emperor to kill the son of Dongxing Kuan? A rebuttal rang out. The person who spoke was clad in violet robes. It was none other than the peak stage immortal emperor Zidi. The immortal emperors who appeared here were all immortal emperors who participated in the emperor-ranked war in the Evergreen Kingdom. This war between the Dongshengshan Gate and the immortal Qianbian Gate was simply a continuation of the emperor-ranked war. If it wasn't for the subordinates of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor interfering, Dongxing Yin would have died as well. The Chongqing the Great spoke. I have no idea about that. I only know that an initial stage immortal king crippled Dongxing Kuan, and even gave the order to kill Dongxing Yin. Tell me, where did this ant-like junior get his courage from? Zidi coldly spoke. His sharp gaze turned to Qin Wentian as his might bore down on Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to raise his head and stare at Zidi. An ant? Right now, he definitely couldn't be called an ant. Even in front of Zidi, he was still extremely weak. This sentence of Zidi was undoubtedly intentionally directing the anger of Eastern Sage onto him. To think that a peak-stage immortal emperor of the immortal realms would actually use such underhanded methods to deal with an ant. Qin Wentian mockingly laughed. Impudent. Ziti stepped out, causing the air to tremble. Qin Wentian only felt his entire body trembling. What an uncultured thing, speaking to a senior like this. Do you believe that I won't kill you with a wave of my hand? Ziti coldly threatened. Qin Wentian's eyes turned cold. Seems like this Ziti's killing intent towards him was extremely strong. Even if he was at the Immortal King realm, it was still insufficient. He had to quickly grow stronger. At that time, who would dare to speak to him in such a manner? Ziti, you are a peak-stage immortal emperor. It's not too good for you to threaten a junior like this, right? The Chongqing the Great unhappily spoke. What? Brother Chongqing's daughter hasn't married yet, and you are already speaking up for your son-in-law? Ziti coldly laughed. In addition, this place isn't the Evergreen Kingdom. Even if it's you, what qualifications do you have to speak to me? The Chongqing the Great was at the peak stage of the mid-stage, but he was still a step away from the peak stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. Although it was just a small step, it was extremely difficult to cross. The Chongqing the Great needed to borrow the power of the Evergreen Tree before he could fight against Ziti. What about me? I should be sufficient, right? A voice rang out. Ziti stared at the person who spoke as his expression turned unsightly. You are truly a lingering spirit that won't disperse. A peak-stage immortal emperor bullying an immortal king junior. Can't you say anything? For a character like you, if you were placed in the era of ancient Emperor Yi, you wouldn't even be qualified. If you dare to say such words in front of ancient Emperor Yi, he would definitely give you a tight slap. That person spoke. So it turned out that this person was none other than the follower of ancient Emperor Yi, back then Emperor Yu. Stop using ancient Emperor Yi to pressure me. Do you think that just because you were a servant of ancient Emperor Yi for a few years, you are superior to others? This Emperor Yu would spoil his plans every time he appeared, causing him to be extremely unhappy. Yet this old fellow was actually a peak-stage immortal emperor. I don't feel that way. It's just that you have cultivated for a longer period of time compared to others. You keep saying that others don't have the qualifications to speak to you. Could it be that you don't understand that since ancient times, the later generations would always replace the older generations? If one day he surpasses you, where would you place your face? Emperor Yu coldly laughed. You Ziti, do you think your cultivation speed is as fast as his? Ziti stared at him only to hear Emperor Yu continuing. I have fate with this junior. In addition, he also has the inheritance of ancient Emperor Yi. Let me remind you, it's easy for you to kill him, but it's also easy for me to kill your descendants. Are you threatening me? Ziti coldly stared at Emperor Yu. If you threaten him, I'll threaten you. Emperor Yu didn't care. Their gazes collided in the air, causing a powerful pressure to surge forth. Also, today, the battle between the Dongshengshan Gate and the Immortal Qianbian Gate of the 13 prefectures shall be conducted according to the rules. I've followed ancient Emperor Yi and witnessed many immortal wars. I've seen ancient Emperor Yi unifying the world step by step. At that time, no one dared to disobey the rules or they would be killed. In this era, although there are no ancient emperors who can dominate the world, since I've encountered them, let's just do it according to the rules. If there's an emperor-ranked battle, let it be an emperor-ranked battle. Immortal emperors are forbidden from acting against those of a lower cultivation base. Emperor Yu flicked his sleeves as he coldly spoke, laying down the rules. Aren't you meddling in too much? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly stared at Emperor Yu. You are right, I'll meddle in this. If you are unhappy, you can fight me. Emperor Yu coldly spoke, incomparably tyrannical, causing countless people to sigh in admiration. This was true strength. All words were useless. Strength was everything. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.